welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richie of the MHRT Network. New cut and everything, so I'm all ready to go, set and ready to go into both the upcoming AFC West matchup against my Denver Broncos and DZ's. Of course, I am Canadian, so I'm going to pronounce it in the Queen's English, so just deal with it. The matchup with the Chargers and the Broncos. Directly over that away is Mr. Jack Kenna representing his Las Vegas Raiders. You know him, you love him, comes into the show from time to time. Hoping to have him on here a little bit more to give us the Chargers insight is DZ. DZ, thank you for joining us to give us your insight on your team from once San Diego, now Los Angeles.
I got to rep the old school San Diego.
Yeah, 100%. And Alex will be joining us later. He is just running a few minutes late and will be in here as soon as he possibly can. So maybe starting some things off, getting some Chargers news in there, obviously with some ranking changes over this past weekend, given the outcomes of the various games. DZ, your thoughts on the game, what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like, and we'll keep it to this week and try to not project towards next, and we'll cover that off later in the show.
Well, so this game had a weird feeling. You know, the Bucs, kind of a different team than from any team they saw all season. I was kind of thinking about it. Like, I don't know what happened. The game was close, and it was like the Bucs could do no wrong. I think they had a total of like 506 all-purpose yards. We got 2 turnovers and only scored 3 points off those turnovers. So there's a big problem there. It was embarrassing. It was a shellacking, and I think had a lot to do with scheming on both sides of the ball. Their run game, I guess it's not a secret. Their run game is great this season from what it was last year. I'm talking about the Buccaneers. They just every play 5-6 yards. Baker could do no wrong. He's dicing it up, and he diced up that zone defense, and it was just bad. What else? Like Mike Evans. I mean, I don't know how many would he catch, like 2 touchdowns. I don't know if he caught more, 1 or 2. After the third quarter, I was just like, this can't be happening. But, you know, and then you get on the socials and the fans are like, you know, talking about our injuries, which, yeah, it's an excuse. There's some injuries that have really piled up and really hamper this team. Justin's banged up again. And I think D coordinators know where our weakness is, that we don't have dependable pass catchers outside Ladd McConkey. So what are they doing? They're shading coverage to his side, and they know that our O-line is weak in the middle, and they send the house. They send disguised blitzes up that middle, and Justin can't do anything about it. And he threw his second pick of the season, which isn't bad, but he threw that second pick of the season, and that was against this game, the Bucs. And you know, I look up and scores 30-something to whatever. I don't even remember the score, to be honest with you. I apologize. It was bad. It was bad. It was a game that you just didn't. Yeah, and then we have this Thursday night game coming up, and I'm just like, this cannot be a precursor going into a division matchup.
Easy, I have a question for you, because I've kind of seen a trend with the Chargers. It seems like, you know, the Chargers defense has been a stalwart, you know, and for the longest time, they've given up the least amount of points. But I see it's like, you know, it's just pure domination on, you know, teams like my Raiders and, you know, some of the lower end feeding, you know, offensive teams. But
yes,
I've been getting kind of the vibe, though, just by, you know, looking at this, is that it's totally different against teams that are, you know, higher rated offenses. I mean, is that kind of the vibe that you're getting too?
Top rated offenses have feasted against this zone. well-balanced teams, let's just say that, have feasted against Minter's defense. And I'm not going to take anything away. I think he's a really good coach. Jesse Minter has a bright future in the NFL. I don't know really why. I could say personnel-wise, coming into the season, they were hampered with cap. It's not a well-known, it's not a secret. And now the guys they did get, they're performing pretty well, but some of the performances have gone down. Christian Fulton, one of our cornerbacks we got from Tennessee, for I would say the first 4 to 5 weeks he was playing outstanding, and I would say the last 4 games his play has been pretty subpar. Injuries to other guys, other cornerbacks, Cam Hart, Eli Apple, which I hate to say that, but he played well for a game. Asante Samuel, our starting corner for the last 3 years, he's been on IR, and there's some mystery behind why he hasn't come back yet, which he's been eligible to come back for quite some time. So, long story short, yeah, good offenses do well against this defense, and we don't know why. And personnel, I don't know. We got some great guys out there, but yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised in the way of the pass rush. Again, with Khalil Mack, he's, as an ex-Raider, he's one of my favorite, guys. And then also, looking at your other defensive end in the way of Bosa, I think between the two of them, I think they had two tackles, 1 assist, which kind of surprised me. I know that, they got a good offensive line, especially Worth. But I just look again, just the Raiders playing them not that long ago. I was just surprised that they didn't get more pressure. And, Tampa Bay was just pretty much able to, push their will.
Yeah, they had their way with them. And it was embarrassing. And I think the team, after the game, they knew it was pretty bad. We'll see how they respond Thursday night. But they are still missing some pieces. Like other teams, everybody's banged up, right? So no excuse there. But yeah, I don't know. Be honest, they are exceeding my expectations this season.
As a whole, I agree. I think they've been pretty darn impressive for the whole season. But I'm kind of curious, because I really didn't look at it today at all. So what's the status with Herbert?
He was off. They took him off the injury report, but he's not 100%. Not at all. They had a boot. Yeah, they had a boot on him. He's got this ankle brace on. They took him off the injury report, but there's no way he's 100%. I mean, he's I've seen clips of him throwing, and he's like a leg and a half. Let's just say that. So I'm already having PTSD Thursday night against the Denver's defense. I'm already like, what are these guys going to do? And Greg Roman, our OC, he has the Chargers, they have, in the last month since JK went down, or they put him on the shelf for a little while.
Is he on IR?
Yeah, he's eligible to come back next week. And he said he's good to go. So that's nice. I'll get into him in a little bit, but we are rushing the ball at one of the lowest clips in the league right now. When coming into the season, they wanted to do this whole bully ball, this whole West Coast Ravens offense, which lasted, and I'll probably get some flack for this, but felt like it lasted 2 games, or it was only effective for 2 games. And the run game hasn't been married with this personnel and this scheme. It just hasn't been a thing. And they've gone to become a pass-heavy team. And, yeah, it's...
Which is interesting with Harbaugh, because, that's his MO, is to run it down your throat. But JK, he's been on, if I recall, he's been hurt multiple weeks, and he's your number one. Has Gus missed some games too then?
Gus did miss some games. Gus is back. He's healthy. He's got juice, but it's like every series they'll run a guy one or two few plays and they abandon it, and it's partly because they're not getting the yardage. They're getting in a lot of third and longs, and they're having to go to the pass game, sooner than they'd like in every game in this last like month or so. It's been pretty bad, and everybody was hoping
on that front there, just to interject, just kind of directly pivot actually off of what you just said there. Are you finding that Roman is very much wanting to run inside, as in guard, center, guard, in that personnel grouping, and that he is struggling to design proper outside run kind of plays? Because I would argue that I mean, clearly your tackles they're no slouches. They're not like, this is the thing that I would imagine frustrates Chargers fans, right? Which is, I don't think anyone is arguing that your tackles are not top tier NFL for sure.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's not maybe a stretch, or perhaps not something that is out of bounds to say that your interior component or interior portion of your line is clearly your weak point within your offensive line.
By
right?
far.
Right. So then if your offensive coordinator is focused on running inside runs, as in leveraging your guard, your center, and then your other guard as being the focal points within the run game, and if they are in fact your weak point of your offensive line, would that not maybe contribute, or certainly contribute, to those run woes? Or am I missing, or am I out of bounds? Is that not what's actually happening?
No, you're right. There's a lot of fans that have been asking or calling for more design outside runs, screens, runs like that, which really haven't seen. I mean, I was trying to think about this game against the Bucs, and I'm like, did they run any screens? And I couldn't even think of one, or maybe a few, maybe one or two, but outside screens, especially with a guy like Kamani Vidal, who's the rookie running back that's got a lot of juice, that can take runs to the outside. Definitely not a thing you want to do with Gus. Gus isn't known for that. But part of me thinks that this is maybe Jim, but partly on Greg, that it's old school stubbornness, that they're like, well, run it again. Let's just see, like, prove to them that you can do it, kind of thing. Like, when obviously it's not working, it's kind of like, if it's not working, there's just not it's like to continue to keep trying it. It's like, what's that saying? There's like something, there's a saying that I'm missing, but they're doing
the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
It's almost insane. Yeah. It's almost
the
insane.
definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, right? So it makes no sense.
Like Bozeman is our center, Zion Johnson, our left guard, first round pick. I think he's a bust for being a first round pick. And then our right guard is Trey Pipkins, who was our right tackle last season. He is now our right guard. But with him, they swap with Sawyer, who is a depth O-lineman, and they switch between pass and run. So it's kind of like almost giving the defense, like, hey, we know what you're going to do. You got Sawyer in here, so you're probably going to try to run this ball. And it's not working inside runs. And then to get back to with JK, he was the heart and soul of this offense this season. And him being out has shown up in the scores of the games, the stats, everything. So he's been greatly missed, more than people thought. We all expected, Gus and Kamani will be fine. Hasn't been the case.
JK seems to be the dude that's actually kind of making that stuff work for you.
Yes.
The other question there is also the obvious, which is JK has made runs work, but what is clear, obviously in the last couple of games, really, if you're going to be honest, is your run game has greatly suffered, and it's not necessarily because of the running backs per se. It's in some cases because the holes just aren't there for them to get through as part of the scheme. So I actually think, and I've been consistent on this pretty much with the Chargers this year. I think ultimately the Chargers and Broncos have well outperformed where they likely should have been given circumstances. One, that the Chargers killed it in the early stage of the season, which I thought was going to be the reverse. I thought the Chargers were, and I'm on record saying this, so this is not like one of those things where, I'm trying to like go back on what I said or anything. I actually expected the Chargers to have a very slow start with your new head coach, simply because all the team is trying to kind of learn new things. And so I don't think that's even an outrageous statement to make out loud, right? Like it makes almost total sense, which is you're trying to learn a bunch of new things. You're trying to figure out what players fit where. And so your head coach is trying to make sure he has the right guys in the right spots. And your team as a whole are all trying to learn to kind of pull the ship in perhaps a slightly new direction or steer that ship in a new direction. But instead, your team started off really hot. Like you guys played really well in the early stages of the year. And by and large, I think it's a somewhat fair statement to make that it's not like you guys have like had a precipitous fall off or anything like that per se, but it's certainly, I would argue, gone down a notch in terms of effectiveness as the year has gone on. I think that's a fair kind of general statement to make.
No, that's completely fair. I was actually thinking about this earlier today. I'm the opposite of what you just said. The fast start. To me, this makes sense why they started the way they did. New scheme for the Chargers on both sides of the ball. New head coach. Yeah, teams could look at the Ravens of the prior years, but let's be fair. We don't have Lamar Jackson on our team. We have Justin Herbert. So I think D coordinators, offensive coordinators were not really knowing what to expect from this LA team this year. And I think as time has gone on, they have film, a lot of film, and on the other side is the Chargers have lost a lot of key guys who are now on IR, and so these guys that they had in their plans in the offseason, okay, he's going to be this guy for us and he's going to be that guy for us. They're no longer there right now. So the next man mentality in this newer scheme isn't working so well. And I've seen it the last few weeks. It's just, it's not working, and it's sad. But I'm talking like this team is, like 2-10 right now, but they're not. I mean, they're 8-6.
Join my club,
worse, brother.
Yeah. They'll be getting some guys back this week, but it's just there's some other fans that are, have talked about the drafts, and it's just what it could have, should have, if they would have drafted, say, like a Malik Neighbors or something. Would this have looked a lot different?
No.
And
yeah, you're better off drafting Alt than Neighbors.
No.
Well,
see, in my opinion,
in the Twitter
Neighbors.
sphere, go ahead,
Yeah.
Alex.
Well, I just think that Malik Neighbors would have been like the Flex Seal patch to the rebuild, right? Like it would have given you some flash, maybe a little bit more explosiveness, but like in reality, you're not doing it. Like what they did with taking Alt is like the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We're kind of doing it from the studs up. And
Well,
so
we were told,
right?
we were told by Jim that from day one, when they introduced him as the next head coach, we were told, like, we're going to build this from the inside out.
Yeah. So
but fans were still hopeful, right? Because fans are going to fan.
He hasn't, though.
Right?
Well,
Who
outside
doesn't want to have
inside.
a bunch of top end players? Get them all in
What
one
do you mean by
season.
that, Rich?
Well, there's two ways that you can look at a line, depending on how you want to go about it. So let's just look back to what the Chargers had last year you have largely maintained or retained a reasonable portion of your offensive line from last year overall. I'm not saying entirely, but overall. And the one thing that is a fair statement to make is there was a massive and clear, just like flashing sign, like Broadway sign, that you suffered like immensely when your offensive center last year went out. Like
Corey.
Corey Lindsley.
Yeah.
Like it was literally an A versus B moment. So you had the Chargers when he was there, and then you had the Chargers when he was not there. It was you could literally draw a line in your season in terms of how successful you were at certain pieces.
Yeah.
Herbert was able to rely on him to readjust things and make certain calls and that sort of thing, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it's unrealistic to expect that of a rookie. I think you need to look no further than that guy's team right there. They have they have arguably one of the best centers that was in this draft, who I think is going to be a legit long-term talent in this NFL, right?
Yeah,
just
stud.
simple, like absolutely stud dude, right? But you need that quarterback on the offensive line. I mean, Alex over here and I have been in lockstep with that since we started the show. I mean,
oh yeah,
look, we are
from the fraternity, man.
We differ on much, including the teams that we root for. But there is one thing that Alex and I literally are like this in terms of the way that we view teams, which is the offensive center of any football team is kind of the glue that keeps that line in check. And simply put, the best teams in the NFL, truly the best teams in the NFL, typically have two things. They have either above average or overperforming quarterback, because again, those two things are, they almost equal one another. And they almost always have either an elite or top 5, top 10 offensive center on their team in the NFL. And that means both run and pass. So
like the Dark Knight or the Dark Knight Rises.
Wasn't that at the Steelers Stadium, or was that in Baltimore?
No, Steelers. Yeah, it was Steelers, Hines Ward was the one returning the kick.
Yeah, but either way, what my point is with what I said.
So the numbers are the current times the Chargers and Broncos have played each other. And the 73 is the Broncos have the advantage. 73 games to 56 Chargers and 1 tie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope it's 73, 56, and 2 after tomorrow.
Oh, that'll mess with stuff, let me tell you. Although, actually, that'll give the Chargers the advantage, actually, because they
what is happening? What is happening?
Wait, was it 2013 they played in the postseason against each other?
Yeah, they did. So we played regular season, and I think we split. And in fact, I think we split. Chargers beat the Broncos at home. Denver beat the Chargers at home, which is just the way we typically work things between our two teams. Like it's actually pretty remarkable the number of losses that we each have against each other, but we lose to each other at home as opposed to win at home.
I thought we hadn't been playing the Broncos well. Like nobody was winning in Denver. I felt like
for the last couple of years, the Broncos were kind of beating the Chargers just due to defense and stuff. I mean, that's the one thing the Broncos have had for some time now, which is but Vic Fangio really masked a lot of issues with the Denver Broncos team just because the dude is elite when it comes to defensive coordination. He is at a different level.
Brandon Staley.
Yeah, Fangio's at a different level in terms of the way he operates, right? But my point that I was making before, DZ, just to kind of quickly put a little bow on it, is inside out typically means offensive center, interior defensive line, and then you build out from there. And so when you look at a team that's typically done it that way or generally done it that way, I would argue Alex's team is probably the best example of that, where they built the guard and the center unit and kind of built that glue between those three offensive linemen first. And then they ended up acquiring their tackles. And frankly, they've actually cycled their tackles a little bit more than they have that interior of their line and still maintain and sustain success. And that's what I mean by inside out. Like a true inside out, when you build it that way, is that middle interior of both lines and that synergy between all of those linemen. In a 3-4 scheme, that would be your D tackle / nose tackle and your D ends. As an example, would be that kind of cohesive unit within the defensive line, and then that interior offensive line would be offensive center, the two guards on either side.
A part of me honestly thinks that Jim Harbaugh kind of, I don't know if this makes sense, like overplayed his hand of what he had. I think he's been out of the league for a minute, I think it was 10 years. And I think he saw like, oh, look, I got a first round left tackle, first round guard. And I think he's just now starting to realize, like, man, like I didn't have what I really thought I had, what I needed.
Who's he referencing there?
I don't know.
We go this way.
Yeah, probably.
But I would argue on, we'll save this for Alex, but I think, with the going the opposite direction, not having the tackles, I think it's really limited Mahomes in the big plays. But I'll save that for Alex to talk when he gets to his time, because you just look at it, he's got no time.
I've mentioned that before. I know I have.
You mentioned that last week.
But I know, speaking of mentioning things before, I also know that we have mentioned the importance of tackles in the NFL and the hit rate of drafting a tackle in the top, 12 picks of the NFL draft. So, I kind of put a bow on it as the outsider looking in, and that, I think ultimately Harbaugh made the right move in realizing it was more than a one draft, one off-season rebuild to be fully, in the mix. You know what I mean?
Well, do you guys remember? I hate being devil's. Real quick, Jack. I hate being devil's advocate. So I'm a diehard Chargers fan, and I love that Jim's the head coach. But when Jim came in, he said, our offensive linemen are weapons. Right, so he's like buying into this, like the O linemen are going to be, the core of this team. Well, Justin is currently on pace to get sacked more than he has in his whole career this year.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what? Like red flags are going off. Like this should not be happening, especially in a team that you were designed to be a run first team. And I feel like everything's blowing up in their faces, and they're just, they're not admitting to it, which they won't, and that's fine. But I think, I'm not going to say real fans, but I think fans are starting to see, like, this hodgepodge of a team. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of very optimistic fans out there, and I'm just.
Well, and this is why I kind of brought it up, is, talking about tackles. So let's say the Chargers did draft, the wide receiver. Now you got your explosive guy on the outside, but now your right guard, who was your right tackle, is now at your right guard, and then you're putting another guy at your right guard. So your offensive line would be even weaker. The whole thing, would you even be able to get the ball down the field? The same thing that Mahomes is experiencing in KC. So I just think it kind of makes it worse. And, again, if you're going to precedent your team on the run, you want those weapons on the offensive line. And most people know that I'm a big Notre Dame fan, and Joe Alt he's been a stalwart for your team. So, I would say that was the right pick.
I think he had like one of his lowest rating games against the Bucs for some reason. He was still great though. I think Joe Alt's going to be like a top tier guy for a long
No
time.
doubt.
He is just a stud. If you just
Which is
watch
scary
him,
because Slater's already a top tier guy.
well, so that's kind of weird too because they haven't paid Slater yet, and my conspiracy brain's going off about Joe Alt playing left tackle, and they haven't paid Rashawn yet, and I'm just like, what's going on? What are you guys waiting for? Pay this guy sooner than later, please. But what Jack, going back to what you said about like, oh, the receiver getting open, would Justin have enough time? I mean, Justin balled out his rookie year with one of the worst Charger lines I've ever seen. And he was just throwing deep balls to two speedsters. But, you know, he's older now, right? And he's not a rookie anymore, and people do have tape on him. But a thing that's going on this season with the current weapons we have outside of Ladd, none of these guys can create separation. These receivers are trash. They are
I was really
garbage.
surprised with DJ Chark not showing up this year.
We don't
I thought
understand
he
what the
was
hell
be
is
your
going
deep
on.
ball threat.
He was supposed to be our prototypical X receiver, and this whole time they said it's been a hip injury. But I mean, I don't know.
Hip injury.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that they're keeping in house. They did just sign Laviska Shenault, like I think 2 weeks ago, off of someone's practice squad.
Laviska, hardly even know her.
So an X receiver is definitely missed on this team big time. And when Chark's been active for like I think 3 games, he plays like a few snaps, if that. I think I've only seen him catch the ball maybe 3 times since he's played. It's kind of.
It's always been his jib, though. You know, like he plays well in like a little 3-game stretch, and then he's hurt the rest of the year, and then the next team's like, maybe we can get a full season out of him, and then he does it again.
We haven't even had a good.
He hasn't even
game
played
with him
well.
yet.
I know.
Yeah,
It's finally ended.
And
the
poor
run.
Ladd's built like a freaking 13-year-old. He looks like that
getting beat
character
up.
from Mario Brothers. What's
He
the guy
reminds
with
me of Hunter Renfro is what he reminds me of.
He's got a lot of that, you know,
He's a
white
little
boy.
quicker.
He's but I mean, he's got hops too, but
He's
he's
good.
just taking a beating. He's not built to be your your number one. They land on him like a DB or a linebacker lands on him. This kid's getting up like Mike Tyson just punched him in the gut, you know? Every time I'm just
Which
like,
version?
oh Christ. I mean, they're talking about like using QJ as a running back. I'm like, oh man, we're at this level now, DJ Moore level. I'm like, fuck.
Well, actually, that I was actually wondering because Quentin Johnson's kind of a bigger dude, but he has a similar build to the dude that was he on the Vikings, and he was just signed back this season as a return specialist. We talked about him earlier in the season of the show here.
AJ Osborne?
No,
Cordell Patterson.
Cordell Patterson.
I don't know if he's as big as Cordell though. I mean,
Cordell's not that
was
small.
kind of, wasn't he like thick?
I mean, he's a big dude. Yeah.
Yeah,
wasn't
he's like
Cordell pretty
about
big?
six.
They're probably. They're probably
6'1",
same like height wise, but
You
I
gotta
will
be
admit
close.
Cordell is probably a little thicker. Let's see, Cordell.
And I think they're close. No,
Cordell's 6'2", 220.
That's what I
I
thought.
think Quentin Johnson's probably 6'4", 220. So if
The
he's
different
220,
in those makeups, man. I don't know. QJ
I mean,
doesn't play.
6'4", 220, and 6'2" and 220 are different
he's
body
6'4",
builds.
215. So
Yeah.
so he's a little slender.
So and I was like,
so
do this
he's much thinner
comparison.
then. Okay.
Be between Josh Allen and Justin Herbert because Herbert's 6'6", 236, but doesn't play like he's 6'6", 236. Let's just say that. And you know, like you would expect like a guy of his stature to be able to do a little more, but I guess throw the
I
injuries
get the
out
feeling
there. I
that
don't know.
Polar Knights is calling me fat.
Well, we can just hear a little quirching or squirt, whatever
Yeah.
that
Look,
is.
I get it. I gotta fix my chair. I'll deal with it. Just simmer.
Sometimes I hear it and I think it's mine, and then I give mine a little desk pop, and we're good.
I get it. But anyways, so D said it sounds like there was an interesting game. There's a few issues obviously that need to be addressed. The problem is that some of the issues may not be able to be addressed without maybe a broader look at things, whether it be offensive scheme and coordinator or even players, right? Like
I think the best
the right guys at the right spot.
I think the best fix this season for this team is getting JK back. And he covered up a lot of the inefficiencies of this O-line and the passing game. I think teams even, he wasn't putting up great stats or great YPC numbers, but even defenses respected, like, okay, JK, he can make things happen. He can bust one out, So I think once he returns, things get a little better.
MHRT Networks on Twitch.
Oh, okay.
So let's quickly jump into the Broncos-Colts game, because that was at minimum entertaining to
Jonathan
watch.
Taylor, that piece.
So there was many things that happened in that game. Many things. So obviously it was basically a much closer game than the score showed. Listen here, Tales by Diesel. I know who you are. We've spoken before. Simmer down. But anyways, it was a super interesting game. Definitely entertaining. It was very, very close all the way up until basically the beginning of the fourth quarter. You saw Bo Nix make so we got we had a bunch of interesting things. We saw Bo Nix throwing 3 picks. We saw the Colts really not, if you're going to be honest, they didn't truly capitalize on those picks either, right? Because the score, maintained that really kind of close volley back and forth. And then where things really got out of hand for the Colts was that fourth quarter. That fourth quarter, the Broncos just decided to lay the hammer down. And that was 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter.
Was that when Adonai Mitchell? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that definitely helps.
Was that Nick Benito?
Look, Polar Knights, I think it's been well established that, Colts come to the Broncos to grow up, right? You had a couple examples of that. I don't know. I'm not going to rub it in. I'm not going to rub it in, but we had Elway, we had Manning, all of which who were originally drafted, within that organization and came over to Denver. And we had a couple other players have come over from the Colts.
Well, technically speaking, those are 2 different organizations, but
right.
They were all the same. They were all the same. They were all they all Irsay owned, basically.
Tomato.
Yeah, exactly. But we saw some interesting plays. So we have, at this point here, I do think I have to call out. There's some interesting stats that kind of came out of that game. One, Bo was 3-3, so three picks and 3 touchdowns. He continues to put his rookie on track in terms of potentially being in that rookie of the year conversation, with being able to not be phased, throw when needed to. And DZ, the one thing that I think is not really spoken about a whole ton is the Broncos' run game is trash. And as a result, Bo Nix is really the one that's being tasked with carrying the team overall. Like, the Broncos' run game is awful. You look at that Colts game, Bo Nix was our leading rusher. As a team that does not have a guy with the name of Lamar Jackson on it, you do not want your quarterback to be your leading rusher. Like, you just don't. I mean,
He was Bo Jackson.
yeah, like you just don't want that dude to be your leading rusher. He's your quarterback. You kind of want him to like be healthy, right? And so there's that. And so we need to really fix the run game. That's a huge thing. I'd like to see Watson get called up against the Chargers because I've had enough of Javonte Williams. I'd be quite content if we just cut him outright. I've been wanting us to call Latavius Murray and get him back on our team ASAP. He's also a Sean Payton guy. So I'd like him to come back. He is to call him Thunder is a bit of an understatement. The dude's massive. But I think that he's a type of guy that the Broncos kind of need. They need a guy that can make up for deficiencies in blocking of the offensive line. And if you keep getting a dude who's 6'3", 6'4", you're great.
Well, you already have that in the estimate, Richie. You got a big bowling ball back.
He's also on the Bills, so you can't really get him anyways.
I don't think he was on the Bills. He's gone.
Sure
he's not with them anymore.
I'm sure he's on the Bills.
Yeah, but
you look at the rushing, it's like you over doubled what DZ's Chargers did this week, but I look at it as a game of like bad ball management by the Colts. I mean, they had 5 turnovers in that game. You're never going to win a game if you turn the ball over 5 times.
No, you can't. We also saw a continuation of 2 defensive players on my Denver Broncos. So currently in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, of the top 3, 2 of them are Broncos players. Pat Surtain II, cornerback, who is killing it this year. Although he's not putting up those gaudy numbers that are required for cornerbacks to be truly considered. So I don't think that
because nobody wants to go against them.
Well, this is true. But the problem is that because no one's going against him, he doesn't have those gaudy stats that you often get from guys that end up getting.
Does Surtain travel?
He does, but teams just avoid throwing to him. So they say, what size is he on? Okay, just don't throw that way. That's dumb. Again, to put in perspective, out of 10 passes, every 4th pass he intercepts that are thrown his way so far this season. It's ridiculous. So it's one of those things, right, where, it's great to see a guy have that kind of success, but a guy who does have that kind of success gets the Darrelle Revis style treatment, right? Which is whatever side he's not on, throw there. Right. Right. So there's that. And then the other guy is Nick Bonito. And I don't know if you've seen the graphics and the information on Bonito's season, but the guy has come out of nowhere, at least for me, because I thought or statistically speaking, rather, he had okay seasons the last 2. Like, they weren't spectacular, but they were okay. This year, he's killing it.
Is he in a contract year?
No.
Okay.
So he's in his 3rd year. Now, he could get paid this offseason, given the fact that he's coming off of his 3rd season. So this would be a good time for him to get paid, because if he has another season like this, he might have to get paid too much to the point where it'll be a bridge too far for the Denver Broncos. But that's funny. But like Bonito right now is at 11.5 sacks. He's returned 2 touchdowns, like for pick sixes, basically. And he's got a forced fumble for a touchdown.
Yeah, he's balling.
I mean, he's killing it.
He's balling, yeah.
And that doesn't even include the pass batted at the line of scrimmage. That doesn't include the
11.5 sacks.
Well, no, I already said 11.5 sacks.
Oh, yeah.
But he's got the quarterback hurries. He's got the pressures and other things that haven't been factored into that conversation, which are all, and then in terms of additional stats. So he is on track given those statistics alone. If you look at the graphic, J.J. Watt was voted Defensive Player of the Year for similar statistics. And so was DeMarcus Ware, and so were 2 other players as well. I gave you recency bias just for names that we all kind of know and recognize. So those are my kind of interesting takeaways from the game, where we saw guys continue to play well for the Broncos defense. We saw turnovers, which have been a big part of the Broncos game this season. What I need to see this week, and this is super important, is Bo Nix needs to revert back to 3 weeks ago. His play last week against the Colts and his play the week before is not going to cut it. You cannot play that way against a team like the Chargers that know the Broncos as well as they do, and against a team like the Chargers who are coming off a loss that likely don't want to lose against the divisional opponent, and who have traditionally played the Broncos very tight and very close in terms of games. So we're not going to see like a 21-point swing, for example, in my opinion, in the fourth quarter. I just don't think that's happening, unless the Peyton Manning's on the team, and then you have a 25-point swing in the second half to come back and win.
I remember that game.
Yeah, but the odds of that happening are slim to nil. Like, it's happened like once, basically, in NFL history, and so the whole point is that you can't play like that against a divisional opponent. Alex even has said it with his Kansas City Chiefs with their record, which is a divisional game is going to be a divisional game, and you can't afford nonsense like the Broncos had against the Colts because you're going to lose every time.
I didn't watch your guys. I think it was on at the same time our game was.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yes. What those interceptions Nix threw, were they like bad interceptions? What was it? Wide receivers falling down?
So, Patrick Chiotti, you and I have some conversations we need to have. He is a prominent Denver Broncos media figure who is also on the MHRT network, as well as others, or has been on the MHRT network, and he's been on other networks as well. But he and I have to have some words. I'd like to actually chat with him about this, maybe record something, and we can get it up on MHRT network about his thoughts on this. He and I are probably going to have to agree to disagree, although I'm also willing to put up video to kind of prove my point as to why I believe I'm correct. One of the interceptions, and this was indicative, in my opinion, of what I saw for the majority of the game, Bo Nix was reverting back to what you saw in the very early stages of the year. So if you saw the first two games of the season where Bo Nix was throwing 2 picks a game. Remember those first two games? He was like basically 4 interceptions combined in those first 2 games. Bo Nix had major issues where he was throwing off of his back foot. And what you were seeing, and the reason why you can generally tell this for most quarterbacks, is when the ball has a trajectory that kind of goes at that kind of bell curve angle when it comes out of his hand, where it kind of has that arc up. And Courtland Sutton is not a short wide receiver. He's like 6'3", 6'4". And to overthrow a guy like Courtland Sutton by basically, a full half a human, an average size human, typically shows that you're not planting your feet or you're not driving the ball correctly as you're throwing. And when you actually look at where Bo was throwing those, at least 2 of those interceptions out of the 3, he was kind of doing kind of one of those where you saw him kind of lean back on his back foot. And that's a real issue, like a real issue in terms of making accurate throws. You don't really see that happen with, say, Justin Herbert. And you definitely don't see even Mahomes in his off-platform throws. Mahomes always adjusts his feet because he's a baseball player. And I think this is actually why Mahomes doesn't make those mistakes ever, because it's in his mind, which is, I have to throw the ball, and the only way to throw a ball is A, B, and C, right? And so he's just got it baked in.
I asked that because Justin, when he threw his second interception last week, it was like the worst scenario by the offense, and the Bucs dialed up some heat, and it was almost like him saying "fuck it," like just he was like over it at that moment, and just threw a hope and prayer up because we're pinned back in our own territory near the end zone, and it was weird. The commentators was Mark Sanchez and somebody else kept talking about interception, and it was like that that curse. That what is it where they talk about the kickers? And I'm like, he's going to throw an interception, isn't he? And he did. And it was so bad. He tried to roll out. He's on his back, like back leg, just threw it up. And it was just like, come on, man. It was trash. And I was like, that was wondering because I saw Nick's stats. And I'm like,
what was the ball flight on that?
Like this.
So it landed ass end of the ball down, right?
Yeah, he was throwing like he was like leaning back, like
right, yeah,
getting away from that blitz,
yeah.
and just he's so strong that he could just launch it. In, I don't know where they intercepted it at, but it was so bad. It was just crappy throw, crappy everything. So it wasn't like the defender made a play. It was just to the guy pretty much. But anyways, I was wondering about Nick's. I'm like 3 interceptions. What the hell? So that
was very similar to the Sutton overthrow that we saw from Nick. So Bo tried to drive the ball, but because he tried to drive the ball off his back foot, the ball traveled. So typically you want to see the ball kind of travel like this, where it kind of either targets the wide receiver and arcs down, or even, you can kind of drop it up and down. There's a few different ways of going about a throw in terms of like a proper NFL throw to kind of make the ball work and make the throw work. You typically can tell that a quarterback has thrown off platform inadvertently when you see the kind of the back end of the ball drop, as in it normally goes front end of the ball into the wide receiver's hands. But normally when you don't see a purposeful throw where it kind of drops that way, normally that means the quarterback hasn't set their feet correctly and they've kind of thrown off platform off their back foot. And it's kind of more of a fluke throw that landed properly rather than a good throw that was well done. And what we actually saw from Bo was it kind of took this kind of wonky trajectory where it kind of shot like that, which again is indicative of throwing off your back foot without planting your feet properly, where you can drive the ball and actually accurately kind of rope-a-dope it to wide receiver properly like you would want to at the NFL level. I have to look at obviously Mahomes for doing that the best of all of our quarterbacks currently in our division. Although I do think that Herbert and Nix are certainly kind of only a half step behind him in truth. But it'll take time for both of our quarterbacks to be able to get up to Mahomes level if they ever do.
Yeah. If they ever do.
Yeah. If they ever do. And so throwing off platform off your back foot typically ends up a result in you sailing the ball high or wide, and sometimes even short, depending on how badly planted your feet are. Because the quarterbacks, the way that they drive the ball and get the power is by planting their feet and leveraging weight transfer from their back foot to their front foot when they're throwing the ball. And that's why you see those laser throws. If you actually watch the way that the quarterback's feet are planted, they're normally rigid, and you see the rocking of the body weight of the quarterback plus a twist to then line that ball up, and you see the thing come out at just an obscene speed out of the quarterback's hand when they're able to land it. Well, that he's, Kirk second cousins is always a different thing in and of itself.
Bench cousins.
Yeah.
Right.
But Mahomes is infamous for throwing those lasers from time to time, where you just watch these things go down the field and it's pretty ridiculous. Herbert has a fair number of those too, but if you really want to watch a quarterback that throws that torque with like the actual laser kind of, Josh Allen's probably one of the best quarterbacks to watch currently in the NFL. The guy,
I'd love to see a throw off between some of these quarterbacks. I would love to see like who's actually got the arm, because some throws, Josh Allen and even Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. I'm not talking about. I want to see like howitzer, like level laser throws, and then maybe Favre's throw. Like since the Pro Bowl is a joke, like let's just invite these guys to have a throw off.
Well, see, that's what I would like to see. I'd love to. Do you want to be one of the greatest quarterback competition throws at the Pro Bowl? Is to start all quarterbacks off in the end zone and see how far down the field and how accurate they can from that distance. So like almost like a twofer, right? Because those are really the throws that are exciting to watch, like the 70-yard dime that some of these guys are able to throw. I mean, that's what fans want to see. Like, if you're going to be honest, that's what everyone wants to see is the Tyreek throw at 60 yards down the field that Mahomes was able to land, countless times that we saw in his time there, where he threw it 50, 60 yards down the field right into his into a bucket, right? But anyways, the Broncos game was super interesting against the Colts. I highly recommend rewatching it because the score is somewhat deceiving. It was a very close game up until about 5 minutes or 5 minutes or so into the fourth quarter. And then things just got way out of hand for the Colts. And then obviously the score, kind of shows a pretty wide gap there as a result of the Broncos kind of dominating there in the fourth quarter. But really in the third quarter, it was a couple points here and there in terms of how close the score was. And then the Broncos, and actually in fairness, the Broncos then started blitzing again, and then they threw Richardson off his game and really started. That's where things got really bad.
Well, the defense shows up again. Gotta love that.
It was a super interesting game, and so that's that. But let's move on real quick, Alex, to your game, and then we'll jump over to the Raiders. But I do want to spend some time on obviously the big game of this week for our show, which is obviously the Broncos Chargers. So, Alex, quick thoughts on your game, and then we'll throw over to Jack.
Yeah. So kind of polar opposite of like you said with the Colts Broncos. In that this game wasn't really ever close or that I was ever nervous. I think I said last week that I felt it would be a close game and come down to a Jameis turnover that would, it is payback, you piece of shit. But I'm pretty sure last week I said I thought it would be close and it'd come down to a Jameis turnover. He did that pretty early and often in this game, such that it never really made it close because, in total, the Chiefs defense, which was, I think ultimate shout out of the game has to go to the Chiefs defense. They got 6 turnovers, 5 sacks, gave up 7 points, and held the Browns offense to their lowest, yards offensive outing under Jameis Winston. When, outside of turnovers, they've been a relatively explosive unit, up to this game. So to see them kind of hit it from all fronts on the defensive side of the ball, was great. 4 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. Trent McDuffie I was shocked when I heard it, but he got his first interception of his career.
What?
Against, I know. It's
really
great.
A career?
His first interception of his career. And the other, him explain it after the game. And when you watch it, he saw on the Jumbotron that the ball was being thrown to him and turned around and caught it. So he wasn't even alert enough. But yeah, I mean, defensive side of the ball is just amazing to, I guess, really exploit the mistakes that Jameis always makes or bait him into those same mistakes. So, across the board, getting to the backfield, getting interceptions, great defensively. They also got 3 sacks on third down. So they always, were coming up pretty big when they needed to. Offensive side of the ball, it's kind of a little bit of the same song and dance. It was a turnover-free game, so good to see Mahomes get out of that. It was actually their 4th straight turnover-free game, so they've at least played clean football, for whatever version that may be with the Chiefs.
That was a narrative for a while,
yeah,
and then that's gone away. That's good.
Yeah, so they're playing clean football now. It's just they're not winning the way people expect them to. But at the end of the day, a win is a win. As I say, but
just win, baby.
Did you talk about Hollywood? Oh, you're talking about the game.
I'm about to. Yeah. So no, offensively, it was nothing crazy exciting. Juju scored. Noah Gray, I think, got his 5th touchdown on the year. So that connection's been pretty good one. Xavier Worthy, talk about rookie stats. Kenna, he
let's hear it.
became the fifth rookie in NFL history to have 3 rushing touchdowns and 3 receiving touchdowns in a season. So,
Nice.
I guess to be in that, I don't know who the other 4 are, but I say at least good to see that they're getting a plethora of production out of him, kind of
Right.
on different ways of getting him the ball, and as well as a rookie, because notoriously rookie wide receivers especially aren't expected to be very productive in Andy Reid's system. So
especially for we talked about the tackles not giving Mahomes the time, and that's his forte is to go deep. So
yeah. Well, and like they're doing it in creative ways. Like he scored technically a rushing touchdown because the throw is behind the line of scrimmage, but they kind of have given him that McCole Hardman role where he gets jet sweeps, or they use him in orbit motions to make a defender have to account for that. So it only helps benefit the offense the more he gets involved and the more he's making plays. So good to see that. But yeah, overall it's like a good, clean KC win. They've won 19 of their last 20 games, including the playoffs. So just continuing, to be on a
that hurts.
heater, despite how it may look. They've won 19 out of 20. This is the 3rd time under Reid that they've had 13 wins in a season. So I think that's kind of interesting to point out, just with how the national media talks about them and how crappy they've looked. Yet when you look at the grand scheme of Reid's career, this is one of the best ones they've had as a team. And they're 2 wins away. They win 2 out of the next 3. They have the best season ever in franchise history.
Wow, nice.
So good all-around game. Still kind of see some of the same issues on the offense, but I think at this point it is what it is, and they continue to find ways to either answer the call defensively or just to make the play and execute when it needs to be done. I am confident that when the playoffs come and the games carry a little more weight and meaning, we might see a little bit different blend of Kansas City's offense. And in the final note from the game, I'd have to give a shout out to Joe Thuney. Kind of unexpectedly, I think it was Sunday, they announced they were sliding him out to left tackle and bringing Mike Caliendo in to fill his shoes at left guard. That's how bad the left tackle situation has gotten. They're like, let's move our all-pro left guard to left tackle. And he played the position in college, and for him to do that and have to go against Myles Garrett, and for them to not give up any sacks, like Garrett got him a couple times, but for the most part, he did pretty damn good. Better than
the words out of my mouth.
Better than Humphreys and better than Suma Atea or Wanye Morris would have done. So shout out to Joe Thuney as well. But yeah, overall is kind of the same.
It was a perfect storm for your Kansas City Chiefs. I thought the score was going to be even bigger. It's like what defense is going to show up, and when Myles Garrett gets no sacks, and you got turnover king and the Cleveland Browns quarterback.
Yeah,
it was a perfect storm for KC. I saw that coming.
Yeah, I got a feeling it was going to go like that when Winston just floated a deep post right over the middle, like a ball in a deep post right over the middle, and just let 3 KC defenders just run under it and get it. I was like, it's going to be one of those days. Hell yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see them marry Brown.
Appreciate it, Polar Knights. Hopefully he didn't pay for that, but everyone's got their own vices, I suppose.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. What are you saying, DZ? Sorry.
I said it's going to be interesting seeing them marry Hollywood in this with Hopkins, with Worthy, Gray. Kelsey, 3-4 times a game.
Yeah,
he hasn't played with the team yet in a game, right?
No, he got hurt second week of the preseason. So, and he's back to practicing. I think expected to play in this next game. So that'll be interesting. And then obviously, the one thing I guess I didn't talk about. I got the same motto. I guess the one thing.
Feel like dimes and quarters for fat girls.
I think it's gummy bears. Just throw those out. I suppose the one thing I didn't talk about is obviously Mahomes left the game with an ankle injury. It's that
he got
time
rolled
of year.
up. He got
dude, as the Kelsey said on their podcast, I love you, Pat, but the dude's got some weak ass ankles because he always seems to get this type of injury around this type of time of the year. But everything has come out is that he's fully practicing and expected to play. So I think barring any setbacks, there's no reservations on sending him out there. And frankly, that's because until they've secured the number 1 seed, there's still a lot to play for in these final 3 games. Yeah. So, it's not really let's rest them. And
2 years, you guys had the number 1 seed, right?
They didn't last year.
Oh, they didn't?
No, that was Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
Because they beat Baltimore in Baltimore. But yeah, 2 years before 2 years before that, they were the number 1 seed.
Okay.
The hell was that?
Dogs? Somebody's dogs.
No, that was my.
Is it Denver?
That was my kid.
Sorry.
I was like, damn, that was loud.
Unfortunately, the Canadian government here is not a fan of duct tape to be used as a parenting tool.
Zip ties? I mean, but yeah, I get it.
Zip ties leaves marks, but duct tape.
And a drill.
But it's so Jack, real quick, maybe in your game, we can jump right into the week ahead, so we can keep this show.
Yeah, I know it's tough listening, to the Raiders, side of things. That's for sure. It's been tough for the Raider fans, and talking about Raider fans. So, hey, for those Raider fans in the show, Joe E, Anna, Northeast Raiders, Ed, Carlos, AE. All people I talk to in different chats around the nation, salute brothers, salute sisters. I'm glad to see you here. And if I missed anyone, I do apologize. Yeah, this was a hard game to watch. I mean, Atlanta, it's Monday Night Football. So if we go back in history, Raiders used to own Monday Night Football, and it was like one of those games going, God, we don't want to add to the loss column out here, but we don't really want to add to the win column either. Because we don't want to be having to try to trade up to get picks to get our quarterback. And it was bad. I mean, you're missing so many players. Max did not play this game for those of other teams, and he's out for the season. Yeah. He's on IR now. So with his ankle injury that he had earlier in the season, now he's having surgery on it. So you're missing him. It was a struggle. It was absolutely a struggle on offense. Ritter didn't do a great job, but I will say Kirk Cousins didn't do a great job either. It was a very defensive battle. The game was 15-9 overall going to Atlanta. I mean, the Raiders held. I mean, Nate Hobbs came back, which is great for our defense. It just shows that our defensive backs are playing well, and kept Kirk Cousins, to like a minimal to a play.
His ass benched.
112 yards, and now, he is going to be on the bench. So, just go a little deeper in that. If Penix comes out, and again, who knows what Atlanta will do next year. If they're going to want to cut him, that's going to be like a $40 million cap hit.
Yeah,
so
Kirk's gone, man.
They're going to feel that.
Broncos said, "Hold my beer." We got that beat by 40.
Yeah, no, I know you do, but that's like that's a big cap hit for a team. What the Raiders could not do is they could not stop the run. So I don't know, Alex, for fantasy Bijan, man, what a game.
Bijan's
22 touches for 125 yards. He just ran the hell out of the ball. Raiders could not do anything against that kid. I mean, he looked damn good.
Well, it didn't help you guys also with McCormick going down, right?
Yeah, McCormick, he's on IR too. So hasta la vista, baby. So, yeah, they ended up signing Andre Carter II, and they elevated him to the regular roster.
What'd you say, DZ? Sincerely off my lineup.
I really get the F off my lineup.
Oh, you have him on your lineup for fantasy?
No, so I wanted to ask you when you were done talking about the game, because I had a lot of fantasy implications with your guys' game. I didn't start McCormick. I started Bowers like everybody else. And I watched Ritter stare down everybody else but Bowers that second half. I was like, what the fuck is this guy doing, man? Throw it to Bowers. Bowers was just doing cardio out there in that second half. He was,
decoying.
it was.
Well, teams are like doubling them now. It's like they know they need to take him out. He's setting a record. Every time he makes a catch, it's a new record. So I won't talk about Bowers making any records this week because every catch he gets is a new record. He's just that badass.
Yeah,
but you know what? You may want to look at him this week because, again, the whole thing is that coming back is we got AOC 12 coming back versus Ritter.
Too late. I'm done.
That's done.
Yeah.
I'm sure Alex will make a trade with you if you want to trade Bowers.
No, it's done, dude. That was my main home league too. That was for the big enchilada. That was for a couple grand. That was the trophy that I've been.
That was it. That was everything. That was my unicorn.
I was chasing this mythical trophy we've got, and you got your engraved name on it, and it's been in my house many years, but not because of me, because of my significant other. She has won the championship 2 times, and she is now in position to try to do it a 3rd time. And me having the better team, and I had Brock Bowers, and I'm like, come on, Bowers, and I got 5 points.
Well, Ritter, you got to wonder about Ritter.
And I was like, don't throw to Bowers. Like the last minute of that game, I was up like 1.6 points or something. I was like, please, God, do not throw the ball to him.
Problem is that you can't guarantee that's not going to happen because the dude's clutch.
Oh, I know. That's why I was like the Key and Peele meme, dude, just beating. Like,
and I didn't look. I think he's probably number 2 in the NFL in reception. So if you got a PPR league, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, that last throw Ritter threw is like a Hail Mary or something.
And that's how close it's been, for the Raiders. It's been like this every single, which is good. Because I don't want to see, the tank. I don't want to see giving up. But I do want to see a good battle. But, at this stage in the game, there's nothing to – and it's not like, okay, last year Christmas, since we're almost this Christmas time. So, again, Merry Christmas to everybody. It's not like last year we're playing a divisional game against KC. Yes, I don't care. And you know what? Maybe the Raiders might have had Bo Nix or a Michael Penix if they would have lost that game, but they won the game. And so that puts you further back in the way of the draft. And this year, I don't want to see that.
No,
I never want to tank, man. But I want, because again, if you win a game, which when we talk about the next week's game, this could be one the Raiders could win. And so it's going to be a toilet bowl. And in fantasy football, we have our worst teams when they play each other. For the worst record, we call it the toilet bowl, and the winner gets a toilet seat and they get to sign their name to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm calling this next game is going to be the toilet bowl. But the Raiders defense, again, now you're minus Max. There are so many guys that are gone, but the guys that are coming in are stepping up. It could be a mix, again, just like Jameis Winston, played Jameis Winston, the bad Jameis Winston. It could be the bad Kirk Cousins, with a good Raiders defense, which every single week it seems like the defense is doing their job, but the offense can't get anything going. Hell. Desmond Ritter, just like, Richie, like you talked about Bo being the leading rusher. Desmond had 28 yards. Alexander Madison had 21. This team can't run the ball. This offense is so stagnant. So
join the club.
Oh, it is bad.
Can't run the ball either.
I look at Al's team. He's got like 2 backs that are like 60 yards, a piece. And, and they don't even have to run it if they don't want to.
Right, but that's the difference between having an interior defensive line, which is able to move guys off their spot on the defensive line of opposing teams. And I think that's a huge difference between solely focusing on your tackles versus primarily focusing on your guard and centers, right? Where the interior of your line is where you can get the quick yards to get 3 or 4, in that general range. If you can get your running back just past that defensive line, you're able to get to about the 3-yard line just as long as they can get past the defensive lineman, right? And so I think that that's funny. The problem that you end up with is that, if you don't have that interior of your line or an offensive line that can actually run block to push the defensive lineman backwards on those run plays, because that's really what needs to happen, right? In order for run plays to work, your offensive linemen have to be good enough to push the defensive lineman backwards or to the side to open those holes. And if they can't, then you're going to lose. You're going to end up with a loss of yards in the middle of the line, and then you're going to end up with a really interesting proposition where you're going to become one-dimensional in the run game, where you have to run to the outside, and that will really only work for so long with defensive adjustments. And you have to have an offensive coordinator that is then capable of playing the game of chess.
And I totally agree with the guards, on this team. And I also agree, probably with Glaze. I think Glaze is not the power right tackle. I think he's kind of more of like a zone blocking tackle. I mean, JPJ, though, that kid, yes, I can see him get some push. So I like the future with him. I think he can do both. He's demonstrating. He's only 21 years old. He's a kid. Shoot, I got a son that I think that's older than he is. So it's kind of crazy to see that, but totally agree. The scheme, the running backs, there's like no live bodies left. The only thing I'm happy about is AFC 12 is coming back this next week and get Ritter on the bench. It was kind of a fun story to say, Ritter, 3rd round draft pick. They signed Kirk Cousins. You draft Michael Penix. Raiders pick him up off the practice squad, and now he's going against them. That would have been fun, to see him have some more success against, Atlanta. But yeah, it was not in the cards, that's for sure.
I think that kind of goes to show, though, that he is a floundering backup at best in the league.
Yep.
And I think that's unfortunate for Ritter.
Because I think a lot team in his second year.
Yeah, and I think that's unfortunate, right? Because you like to have guys that can maybe show that they were underestimated, but I think that he's kind of been a guy that's kind of more shown that he
was estimated.
Yeah, he was estimated properly. Yeah, so that's unfortunate. Anyways, I'm going to throw over to you, Alex, and talk about your upcoming game this next week. I'll look ahead, if you will, give your predictions, and then I'm going to have DZ and I kind of go a little deeper down that rabbit hole, just because it's
toe-to-toe.
Yeah, a little toe-to-toe, because I think it's going to be an interesting game at least. Yeah, just give me a sec. Alex, you go ahead, and I can deal with the crap upstairs.
What?
Yeah, I gotta sort some things out.
Oh, man. But yeah, I guess I'll do this pretty quickly because, honestly, it seems like every Chiefs game I come away or preview it with the same mindset of,
it's like Groundhog Day, man.
Yeah, they're never going to blow anyone out. It might seem like almost it's like they're losing control of the game for a brief stretch of 5 to 8 minutes of game time, and then ultimately they figure it out at the end. So, I do think that one component is obviously Mahomes' injury, and whether that's the seriousness of it is being downplayed or not. Remember that. Thanks, dude. Whether that's being downplayed and that impacts things or not, but they should be getting Hollywood Brown back, so hopefully that helps add a layer to the offense. Houston's defense is pretty damn good. I mean,
Their pass rush really good.
Yeah, like I mean, they got Daniel Hunter to go with Will Anderson, and I mean, Hunter's got 12 sacks already this year, so I mean, that's definitely paid off. Their secondaries, I think, giving up the lowest pass percentage to opposing teams. So I mean, they're pretty stifling kind of across the board. Like they shut down Miami's offense last week, but again, it's like it's also Miami, so they've been somewhat of a dumpster fire. So how much of that, can you give a lot of weight to
Miami? I don't think they've beaten a good team in like the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, I mean they got after Tua, Tua threw 3 picks. So I mean it's a very opportunistic and aggressive defense with D'Amico Ryans, who I always like D'Amico. So
yeah,
I do.
Love that they're doing good. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of, I think it's almost like that Spider-Man meme where it's a little bit of the, same team going against each other, where they both are, have pretty good defenses and, pretty elite offenses on paper that haven't necessarily, panned out the way we thought they would.
Who's home?
It's at Arrowhead, so I mean that's definitely an added component too. But I do think it'll be a close game. I think it's going to be more of a defensive game than an offensive one, just with how KC has struggled, if you will, on that side of the ball as well as Stroud. But I think Kansas City finds a way to comfortably win.
That's a decent offense on Houston. Nico and Mixon and was it Schultz still?
Mixon's to be. I mean, he did not practice today, so we'll see.
Well, they've also missed their receivers too.
Yeah, Diggs. I mean, Diggs is out. Tank Dell's been irrelevant.
Yeah.
They did get Nico back, so that is definitely one component to it. But yeah, I mean, if Kansas City can control, time of possession with the run game and be a little bit more successful at that than they were against Cleveland. I don't see them having any trouble winning the game if the defense is playing the way it is.
Yeah, I'm curious about Houston's offensive line. With Chris Jones out there, it's like
that's
And I just don't know if Houston can handle him.
Minihue and Karlaftis is. I mean, Karlaftis is going to get paid somewhere. Whether it's with Kansas City or
what's Karlaftis' stats right now, like off the top of your head, or.
I mean, I think he has like 9 sacks right now. I mean, he got what I think 11 or 12 last year. So I mean, to be
I was always really skeptical when he got drafted and real curious about him.
Yeah,
and he seems like a super blue collar kind of DN.
He has 7 right now. 7 sacks, 23 and a half in his career, though. I mean,
that's pretty respectable.
That's pretty decent. So yeah, I mean, and then Minihue's back into the fold and he's playing well. So yeah, there are enough pieces on the line. As we saw
a free
last
agent
week.
next year, right?
Yeah, yeah, they signed him to a relatively cheap, I think 2-3-year deal, 2-year deal, and he got hurt.
Bolton's a free agent next year too.
Yeah, there's still some big pending free agents coming up. But yeah, I mean,
I want Spillane off the Raiders. I doubt that.
You know what? I never got a chance to talk to him. He's got 100, I think, combined tackles, 124 or something in that range.
Alex, for hijacking it.
Oh no, you're good.
I'm in 2025 mode for some stupid reason.
You shouldn't be. I'm in 2025 mode.
I'm not yet. All right. Somebody talk about.
No, you guys are on the precipice of three-peating, and I've been so anti-Chiefs, this isn't going to happen, but then I'm seeing things happening that I don't like. The Bills' defense is getting trash. It's just non-existent. The Lions, my other Super Bowl pick, their defense is just crumbling, gone, and I'm and then you look at the stats of the past 12 Super Bowl champs. They've all had top 10 defenses. And I'm well, there goes that. So then I'm okay, Philly's kind of still in there, but I hate Philly. So
yeah, Philly's offensive line is the bomb. Their offensive line is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Well,
Just,
I was going more defensive, like of
even defense.
teams
So.
that were going to get in there. Chiefs definitely have a good defense. I don't know where they're rated, like ranking wise. Maybe
Yeah, I mean
top 10, right?
they might be on like right on the outside. I think they're a little lower than they were last year.
But they're sandbagging like they do every year.
But yeah, I mean
They'll get in the playoffs
they're
and
still good. Like they're still
I don't see them saying, but they want that number one spot. You know, they had that interview with Mahomes today, and he's like, you know, hey, I'm gonna go out, but if this was a different, you know, situation where, you know, hey, it's like a one-score game, I'm going back in.
yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean
Yeah.
he dude does not like to sit out. So I knew if it wasn't anything crazy, like he's gonna be playing. That's
He's a
just what he
competitor,
does.
man.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, hopefully it's not anything crazy and he's just, you know, trying to be a hero and it makes things worse. But you know, this kind of I think he's had this ankle issue at this point of the season the past three-ish years, so things have worked out looking a little bit down memory lane. So
The mysterious ankle every year.
Yeah, it's like I said to you, didn't know he was faking it. I got some like Bills fan like I got on Twitter after the Chiefs game and it was like a Bills fan that said that. And then I just was reading the comments and it's like they just hated him so much.
Dude, Bills
I'm
Mafia is like, yeah, they.
They're like, this dude wants to be Michael Jordan so
Bills,
bad. I was like, what?
Buffalo and the Buffalo Bills are a different beast, man. Like they are unified, like beyond unified when it comes to their Bills. That is, it's a unique situation.
And
there.
it's even more prevalent now because they're, you know, good.
Yeah, they are.
So,
well, they are. They're in that upper tier now, right? So.
Oh yeah. Well, Josh Allen just playing ridiculous. Yeah. I did have one final piece of Chiefs news that I forgot to mention, but we did finally officially part ways with Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
You did.
Releasing him. He cleared waivers and he's with the Saints now. So they actually let him walk in free agency, and then he came back on a 1-year deal, and then was, you know, out for mental health PTSD issues, and you know, just unfortunately, you know, the career never really took off for where we drafted him with a first-round pick. But you know, good, I think, for both sides just to move on at this point.
Wasn't for lack of opportunity. I felt like you guys stuck with him for a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if they didn't fall into Pacheco and he wasn't just a, you know, freak fast dude that ran hard, I think we'd still be trying to give Clyde Edwards-Helaire the carries.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was excited about him at the time because I mean, at LSU he kind of was like a Matt Forte a little bit, and he was you know, dual threat, could run the ball but could also catch, and I thought that was a perfect blend to add to Mahomes. And from everything that came out, Mahomes, that was a Mahomes pick. He asked for them to draft him, and then unfortunately he had 3 injuries in the span of like 1 year and just never was the same. And you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And it, you know, it is what it is. But like I said,
dog world, man.
Yeah, best for both just to move on.
The NFL, not for long.
Yeah.
Well, there's also some guys that transition well to the workload and lifestyle at the NFL level, and some guys that just don't. And I mean, I would argue that it took Noshawn Moreno to have Peyton Manning to really shine with the Denver Broncos, and he was a similar dual threat type guy in college, right? And so, you know, some guys elevate to the player that's around them, and some guys respond well to the team atmosphere that's around them, and some guys simply just can't adjust to the elevated expectations that are now at the NFL level because they're used to being the most athletic guy on their team or even on the field.
Or they just
I'd argue too that, you know, running back is one of the positions that I think it's really hard to measure someone's success, especially like stat wise, solely to them and their talent. Because it's like you're also a running back's only as good as the offensive line that they're running behind of. They're only as good as the scheme that's setting them up. And so it's like, you know, like for your Broncos, for example, like Monty Ball, right? one of the most prolific college running backs of all time at Wisconsin, behind a notoriously elite college program that just churns out offensive linemen and running backs like, they're cows. And he goes to the Broncos and just sucks. And, I think a big part of that is because it was not the same type of scheme. It wasn't the same players. And I think that's a testament that you can't just take, a running back and put him on a team and it works out. Like you look at Le'Veon Bell and he left Pittsburgh, completely sucked.
Shell of himself. Yeah.
A lot of it is just fitting in with finding the right system, and as well as, like you said, buying into the elevation or the expectations of that, but also, being in a system that works with your game. Because it's like, yeah, you can see a running back run a 4.4 and watch him, run the 3-cone drill and all the drills and know he's, shifty and elusive and quick twitch. But it's like, how does that fold in with what we have?
Right. And I totally you put the nail in the coffin right there. I look at Zeus. I mean, the guy ran a 4.38, and you guys seen pictures. That guy is just, he looks like a bodybuilder. I mean, he's just completely
with like
ripped.
44-inch biceps.
And yet he stinks.
Okay, here we go.
He sucks.
Our first round left guard, Zion Johnson. He came in this offseason, biceps bigger than people's torsos. He is now considered, among the Chargers fan base as a freaking bust. And they drafted him, I think, at the 17th pick overall.
I think part of it with Zion, though, is losing Corey Linsley and not having that like anchor guy. Because before Linsley got hurt, Zion was a beat. I remember telling, I know I said it on here, and I remember telling Coach, like, dude, that guy looks like a problem. And like it was that early game. I think the game Linsley got hurt, he was shutting down Chris Jones. Yeah, he was shutting down Chris Jones. And then Linsley got hurt.
Get hurt against the freaking Chiefs?
No,
but
that
Herbert got hurt.
Just to jump in there, this is exactly what Alex and I have spoken about now on multiple shows. This is why the offensive center position is a linchpin.
Oh, no,
a linchpin in the offensive line side. So, as an example, you have a dude there that you're saying, maybe a bust. But to Alex's point, he was going up and winning against, Chris Jones, who's
literally, I remember him standing Chris Jones up.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying is that like Chris Jones is number one, number two, like in his position, like, and I don't think that's even, he's elite. Like the dude's a gold jacket, right? So let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And so So this is why it's so important is that like getting the guys in the right spots is so critical, and getting the guys to be adjusted for is so critical.
Maybe throwing the word around bust, loosely like that.
The trigger word.
Yeah.
No, but you could still see him as a bust for your team.
I think a first round pick, I see him as a bust. First round as a guard, which I don't have a problem getting a guard in the first round.
I don't either.
I don't either.
But the way he's played, it's just. But then you go back to Alex's point and your point about the center, and I think every Chargers fan is now going, holy shit, like our center play, because they're the QB of the O-line, man. They're calling out protections. Like, wow, how freaking important it is. I had one in one of my chats today, I think earlier, a guy was like, somebody was calling Corey Linsley, the signing of him, a bust, because the majority of his time with us, he was injured. And it was late in his career, and then he medically retired due to a heart issue. But when he did play, it was freaking elite. And it was just it was unfortunate. But they did make him at the time, Tom Telesco, Jack, made him the highest paid center in the league when he signed with the Chargers. And
I have a question. So with Zion, is he like, do you see him as like a one scheme guy, just like a power scheme, or do you see him versatile enough to play power and zone?
Both. He
You
was
see him do both. Okay.
projected to be both.
No.
But
No.
what have you seen with your
No.
eyeball test?
No.
Well, hang on. What's Rich saying? Go
No. He is inside zone and power. He is
Okay.
not an outside zone player. Because zone is so for zone on the outside zone scheme, so we're talking the 49ers, we're talking Ravens. Philadelphia Ravens play a lot of outside zone, and that is just for those of us, for those who are not necessarily like football X's and O's kind of guys. Outside zone is where you typically see the movement of the offensive line. You see a lot of movement in the outside zone plays where you see the entire offensive line a lot of the times will physically move in one direction versus another, and that is indicative of an outside zone blocking scheme. Or outside zone is also where you see a bunch of guys that are here, but then you see the guard on the far left go to the far right of the offensive line and block on the outside of the right tackle, or the left guard to block to the outside of the left tackle. Those are often indicative of outside zone run style plays that you see from my old Denver Broncos when John Elway was our quarterback. That's also what you see from the San Francisco 49ers. It's also what you see from the Baltimore Ravens and from the Philadelphia Eagles in today's NFL. And so you typically need a guy who's more nimble and mobile in order to play outside zone, because there needs to be a lot more movement.
Rich, that is Zion. That is him, but he might not play it well. The thing about him, he's like a software engineer from Boston College or whatever. He's extremely intelligent.
He's a genius.
Yeah, but the thing about him, the downside of his play as a Charger, he makes stupid decisions, stupid mistakes. He doesn't pick up the right blocks. He's letting guys, he's olaying dudes in to Justin Herbert. Like now I know what Alex was talking about earlier about Chris Jones. He was standing up dudes, but he doesn't have, like, it's something, there's like this disconnect between.
Is he not seeing it? He's just not seeing it?
Maybe that, just as simple as that. Him and Pipkins, they just don't see it, man. There's clips of our last game where Kimani Vidal is having to pick up 2 free rushers, and we have our we have our center, guard, and tackle picking up 1 guy. Like, red flags.
Never want that.
Flags. And that does go from the center down, right? But
yes,
this guy, he's been here for a minute. I think we drafted him 3 years ago or something like that. So it's like, come on, man. We've got great coaches. This staff they have is freaking excellent. So
but again, going back to centers, DZ, do you feel like, because the center calls, you're blocking. So do you feel then it's like on your center, or is it on Zion himself?
Both. There's both, because we've seen this from Zion since day one. Like, he does great things against beasts like Chris Jones. There was other things he was doing. People
but that was power.
Oh my God. Yes.
Bingo. That was power. No, but
like, we've seen him bust screens, do the zone stuff when we had Kellen Moore. Like, he was running some of that stuff, and it was like, okay.
No, but Kellen Moore runs inside zone.
I swear there was some outside shit he was doing, man.
No, but I'm just saying Kellen Moore's specialty is inside zone, because that's what
you're talking with him now in Philly right now.
No. Philly, he's doing an inside zone, outside zone hybrid. But when he was with the Dallas Cowboys, and when he came over to the Chargers, he kind of
he was bringing that Cowboy stuff over.
He imported the Cowboy stuff to you guys. He runs an inside zone with a combination of power, and so Zion is, in my opinion, just from what I've seen from him, I'm just what it's worth.
You're right.
Yeah. For what it's worth, you can project a dude because he has the athleticism, but that doesn't mean he has the mental ability to move, adjust, and block at the same time. He may have the skill sets to move, and I agree, but that doesn't mean the dude's got the mind or mental ability to actually do the thing.
I don't think he has the it.
Yes.
Kind of what Jack was. He just doesn't have that it, that quick boom. I need
which means that the bicep deal and the strength and stuff. So I look at a guy like Netane Moody from he was with the Raiders for a little bit, but he was with my Denver Broncos first. Jack, I was very, very high on him. He is a top-notch power guy. The guy, that dude will literally lift Chris Jones up over his head, throw him halfway down the field, and say, "Who's next?" Like, he is that strong. Like, the guy is like unbelievable. Like there was dudes on the Broncos. Who was it? DeMarcus Ware and
did he even
Von
start for the
Miller.
Raiders at one point? I don't even remember the guy, to be honest with you.
He did briefly, but he was a fill-in. You elevated to the active roster from your practice squad, and then you cut him the following year.
Okay, well
the problem with Moody is that he is an extremely powerful guy and fantastic at power schemes because his arms are short for his height. And so he's really good at taking a guy when he's right in front of him and throwing him out of the way. And I mean that in the very literal sense. He took a 340-pound defensive tackle, lifted him up in the air, and threw him on his back. Okay? There are not many guards that can do that. Okay? Like, let's just call it duck and duck.
DJ
right?
Fluker. I remember.
Yeah, but there's very few dudes that can do that kind of stuff, right?
You remember DJ Fluker? Anybody?
I do.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He tried to make a comeback. He tried out for some team this offseason.
No, he came back. He was on the Raiders, practice squad.
There
and
we go.
Glad he never.
Right, but the thing
It's like going back to like Leatherwood to your team, DZ.
Oh God.
Same type of guy.
They cut him. I think they cut him. They were fine.
They did, but the thing is that when you're dealing with guys, there's certain positions that they're projected to play: zone, outside zone, inside zone, or power. And just because they're projected for those things, a lot of the times you find out that through to whether it be athleticism at the NFL level, mental processing power at the NFL level, or sometimes strength at the NFL level, depending on kind of where they land on the sliding scale. Sometimes you end up with guys that are projected to be one thing, but actually end up being maybe even elite at the other.
You just said something key. You just said something key, Rich, is projected, right? Like when you go to the draft, these GMs, they project certain guys. Okay, this guy is going to fit well in our scheme.
Right.
Well, the thing about Zion and the thing about a lot of these guys that are leftovers from the previous regime, they were all projected for different things. I mean, this is now like some of these guys, I'm not going to even count Justin. This is their third OC. This is like in the NFL or something. So it's like and they're still either under rookie contracts or, expiring, whatever. So it's like, that's why I look at the Chiefs and their success is their stability, the foundation that they've laid for a while, and that how they've been able to be successful supplementing these, I don't want to say, but subpar O linemen and making it work, right? Like on the outside, especially. Well, maybe it hasn't worked, but they're still winning, right? So that's all that matters at the end of the day is winning. Like, let's be real.
So let's use this as a nice transition. I agree with that as a general sentiment, but obviously with the Chiefs, what they've done is they solidified the center part, which is the fastest way to the quarterback, and they have allowed the outsides of the line to have some churn. Whereas with a lot of other teams, they've solidified the tackles and they've allowed the interior to have churn.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the times where it's like, well, if Herbert has a dude in his face in like 0.5 seconds, he's done. Whereas if Mahomes has a guy in like 1.5 seconds, well, he can certainly make a play in that amount of time, right? And I think that's a huge difference.
And Mahomes creates that extra half second to like get the ball out, which is huge.
He does.
Well, and then a healthy Herbert rolling out is, if he's healthy, he can roll out. He's pretty good. He's pretty accurate. But if he's
I see that as a total plus for your team, DZ. If he rolls out, you got two of the best tackles in the NFL. That's going to buy him time.
Yes,
for sure. If standing in the pocket and you're getting pushed right into him, it's where it's going to really hurt.
And if he's hampered at all, which he has been off and on this season, that doesn't work. That goes out the window. That whole rolling out is not a thing anymore. Anyways, yeah.
Well, I want to hear Alex. We were on your team and we kind of got off track. So
right.
what do you have, KC and Texas? What do you got, going on for the score?
Yeah, I think I already said it, but 24-17, respectable, but a win nonetheless.
And we don't know if Mixon's playing. He's questionable.
Yeah, Mixon's questionable, or at least didn't practice today. There was someone else. For the Chiefs, the only two that didn't practice were DJ Humphries and Chamari Connor.
You guys have had the shortest injury list all season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I know it's nice.
It's either you guys don't report injuries like other teams, or you guys are not as
It's
banged
just
up.
deep too.
Joe Mixon was limited these past 2 days with the ankle, so I mean it's something to watch. But other than that, no one too crazy that didn't.
I feel like in
practice for the
LA,
Texans.
if somebody's wife or girlfriend is on having a menstrual issue, that gets reported on our injury report. Like,
Oh, that's funny.
because it's always
So,
you know,
Alex,
an essay.
I have a bit of a different score than that. I think that this
Shocker.
is a coin flip game with the Texans.
Well,
I think.
let's keep
I
in
think
mind
that-
you also said the Browns would beat the Chiefs last week. So
I did, and I
there's
was
the
quite
polar
surprised.
opposite of that.
I
I
was
missed
quite
that.
surprised. I did, and I will own that.
Shit.
I was quite surprised because I actually thought that the defensive line of the Browns would have more success against the Chiefs line, especially the tackles.
That team's so bipolar.
For whatever reason, the Browns decided that it was a good day to take a vacation because there was very little pressure. Obviously, Mahomes got hurt and stuff, so they obviously got home a couple times there. But
No sacks.
it didn't actually result in the negative plays and other things of that nature that I was expecting to see. And I was going off of recency bias and the fact that I saw my Denver Broncos pass blocking offensive line that is ranked at least, which I take with a grain of salt with the crap that I see from rankings in the NFL, as like the number one pass blocking offensive line, which is just freaking pathetic. And extrapolating to the types of pressure that I saw against my Broncos offensive line and thinking that there would at least be more problems for your Chiefs than there was. And obviously I was mistaken, which I'm happy to admit. But I do think that you are going against a better quarterback, a more competent quarterback with the Texans. I think that CJ Stroud is a better QB. I think he's got a better head on his shoulders. I think he makes better decisions. And I also think that the Texans are in the position they are in the playoffs for a reason. And I think that needs to be factored in as well. And so I have this as a coin flip game, but ultimately I do in fact have your Chiefs winning, but I do see this as a 31-27 style game or something to that effect, as opposed to such a broad gap. I do think your Chiefs are going to win, but if Mahomes kind of gets pressure on him and a few other factors come in, I could just personally just as easily see that score flip with the same margins, by the way. I'm not saying that the Texans are going to run away with this thing. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying I could just as easily see that game flip because the Texans are definitely in an upward trajectory as a team. I think that's undeniable for anyone that is watching the NFL. So
Yeah, I think they already won the. I think they won the South.
they've already won the South. They've already won the South.
Yeah.
So they haven't done that by accident. You know what I mean? This is very purposeful. They have a good team and they have good players on there. Now, can they overcome the Super Bowl champs and the Chiefs and the record that you guys have? I don't think so, but I do think this is a closer game than what you predicted because the Texans are a good team no matter what. The Chiefs have a great defense. The Broncos have a great defense. And I think that you're going to see tight games coming up as we approach the playoffs against playoff level teams. And the Texans and Chiefs are both playoff level teams.
Fair enough.
Can't argue with that one. Yeah, for me, it's it really depends, on Mahomes' health, and of course, the tackles that Casey has. But I feel like, this game is going to be a game for Chandler Jones to really kind of step up and, do what he does, game in, game out. I kind of feel like, that's where they're kind of weak. And I feel like he's gonna perform extremely well. I don't have it like a 3-point, field goal type game, like, what Kansas City's had, a lot this year coming down to the last second. But I do still see, like, Kansas City, again, it's a playoff contending team. So what Richie said is 100% correct. I feel it's going to be a hard-fought battle. It's going to be probably coming down to the last few minutes. Maybe one turnover here or one turnover there can set the tone for the win or the loss. But right now, I can't argue when, the motto for my team is just win, baby. And that's what – doesn't matter how you do it. That's what Kansas City does week in and week out. So I have it as a 26-20 game going to Kansas City.
Wow, that close.
Love that.
No, but Jack, in fairness, that's a very similar style score to what I had. Like, you're talking a relatively close game. You're talking a very competitive game on both sides of that ball. And that's what I think that's what you're going to see. I completely agree.
I feel like two players in this game come to mind, Mixon and Mahomes. I feel like, and then there's a lot of other factors. Both have won their divisions or their conferences or whatever divisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what do they have to play for? Everybody knows, their goals. I think this game's like, all right, let's see who comes out. Let's see who can. I honestly could see the Chiefs going, oh, shit, maybe we'll get our second loss. Or, the Texans going like, well, you know what? We'll just pack it in and we'll play next week. We'll get ready for the playoffs kind of thing. So I could see this game easily one team winning by 2 scores over the other.
Yeah.
I don't see this as, but like we said, with the Chiefs, we've always close games. They'll squeak it out at the end, the fourth quarter. A field goal or 1 point or turnover or something. I see the Chiefs winning this game because I don't know what's up with Mixon, and they got Hollywood Brown coming back, and that's going to be an added factor in this game. So,
love that.
Yeah, I'm seeing like 26, 21.
Oh, we're right
like
there,
that.
DZ. We're 1 point off on that score.
Yeah.
I don't see 30s, but oh well.
Yeah, it sounds like, aside from Alex, we are a little bit more in lockstep with the rest of the three of us. I think the general consensus has to be you're dealing with two playoff teams. Kansas City is currently seed 1, and the Texans are seed 5. Or seed 4, I think, right? So seed 4.
Yeah.
And so,
it can't be lower than that.
There's a reason why the Texans are 4, but there's also a reason why the Chiefs are 1, right? And I think there just needs to be a bit of
There's
a balance.
There's also a reason why the Chiefs have been 1 and predominantly in the Super Bowl winning / conversation for the past 5 years.
Right. And I'm not discounting that at all. It's just the thing with the Chiefs is that there is a core group that is still with the team, and some of them are aging, whereas the Texans are largely a younger team that are ascending. And at some point, like with everything at the NFL, there becomes like a changing of the guard with various teams when it comes to young talent versus kind of aging talent. And it'll be, I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious in this game, because I could be completely dead wrong and the score that you predicted could be 100% accurate, or we could be seeing this like, razor's edge margin style game with two, playoff teams that have been projected to make the playoffs for quite some time now, because the Texans have been on a trajectory to make the playoffs for quite some time, and the Chiefs have been penciled in there since like the 5th game of the season with their records. So, call a duck and just like, own it. Right. So
we all call it less than 1 score, 1 touchdown. So we're all pretty much in the boat.
Alex didn't. Alex had.
No, he did.
Yeah. It's a 24-17. It's a touchdown game.
That's 10 points.
I thought
that's 7.
I had the potential of this game, one of the teams going up by 2 scores, meaning a touchdown, a field goal.
Yeah. So obviously, this is an AFC West show. DZ, I have to.
No. Save your game for last. Your game is the most important one.
Well,
I don't have time, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't have time. My kids are acting up upstairs, and the hand of dad needs to step in to set the record straight. This may be a carry to bed moment for me. So I have to sort out the hooligans because they dare not.
Belt out.
They dare not. They dare not.
We're
They
kidding.
don't
CPS. We're kidding.
They don't go against the dad, and both of them know that. And
Mounties coming out.
and they will tell you that to your face when they're asked. But I mean, the Broncos Chargers game is obviously the big game of the week for the AFC West. It's a divisional rival game.
Tomorrow night, man.
Above and beyond that, the game was flexed for the Broncos to go to Thursday night as it was for the Chargers. The Chargers didn't have a choice in the flexing. The Broncos did because we already had a short week within our schedule, whereas the Chargers were forced to kind of go in that direction. Sean Payton is an interesting beast where he wants to have these primetime games. It's almost like glutton for punishment, where he wants his team to be showcased. And he also saw as an opportunity to shrink the Chargers prep time to give our team the best possible chance at winning, given the fact that we've been on a bit of a roll as of late with regards to how the Broncos have been playing. Nick Bonito obviously being atop that list because that guy has been playing with his pants on fire, which is, something special. So I do see this as being an incredibly competitive game. This is not a runaway game for either team. This is not a game where the Broncos are going to have like a 31-17 score or something stupid like that. This is not. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Have you seen our offense?
I have actually.
Yeah.
I have actually, and this is where I'm going with it, which is Harbaugh is no slouch. He is a legit head coach. That guy is exactly what your team needed. It is what it is. I'm sorry. You guys picked the right guy for the job. I never thought he was going to kill it his first year. He's actually exceeded my expectations given where your record was last year, just as my team has exceeded my expectations.
With a rookie QB.
With a rookie QB starting the season. We have over 80 million dead cap with just Russell Wilson alone. Again, let's start stacking these things properly and actually assessing the things the right way. So given where we're at and given just how quality my team has been, now in fairness, DZ, you've been a fan of the show for a long time, and I appreciate you not only giving your expertise because it is extensive, but also just knowing what I've said and being able to vouch for it. I never wanted Bo Nix to start, but I never said that he wasn't going to be good. I just didn't want him to start. I felt he needed some runway. But I've also been very clear in the fact that I thought that your Chargers needed 2 years. And I said that at the very beginning of the season. I felt your Chargers needed 2 years. I thought you had some good building blocks, but I thought you needed to build upon what you had because Harbaugh was going to need his time to identify the talent on the roster.
Well, there's two words: compete and contend.
Right.
I always felt like they were going to be able to compete because I watched who they brought in, and then it's also the schedule. Nobody talks about the scheduling. They had one of the easiest schedules going into this season, strength-wise, but then contending. 25 has always been in the back of my head is the year where they can onboard more of their guys going into, and with money. They didn't have money this year. They had to work some magic to get things going and have dudes take, pay cuts and things like that. So 25 has been my year with them, and you guys just pick up phase 2 with the Knicks thing. But, something you were talking about Knicks, like you didn't want him to start away. That guy had 60 games under his belt as a starter at Oregon?
He did. Yep.
Yeah.
So that gave I didn't
But
think
not
about
all
it at
with
the
Oregon
time.
though. He
No,
he,
Auburn
he
as
tried,
well.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
big school.
Yeah.
But that to me is like a confidence booster as him, and it's making sense why he could start, year one. And I think that we're seeing that more, right? Like everybody's starting year one opposed to that whole sitting a year thing. Um, very few teams still do that, I feel like, right? Like it was like the Packers, Chiefs. I don't know any other teams that really have a rookie sit.
That's it.
Packers
Yeah.
and Chiefs are the only ones that I know of that have been doing that since I've been a fan. I mean, the Chargers did it back in the day with
I mean,
their
it's just all for
QBs.
the situation, though. I mean, it's
The
they
point that
had
I
the opportunity and the right.
right.
Well, I feel like
Right.
with media these days, social media, sports outlets, sports betting, that's pretty loud, and that's because there's a lot of other things that we don't want to get into right now. But when I was growing up as a kid, I felt like we rarely saw this. It was always like, oh
We
man, we
almost never
drafted this
did.
guy.
We
Yeah,
almost
and,
never did.
and you're
Yeah.
like, oh cool, I'll see him in either halfway this year or next
There's
year.
two factors though. Two factors, huge factors actually. Like as in like 800-pound gorilla factors in terms of what needs to be factored in. One, if I don't know if you've ever done a meta-analysis. I have. No. I'm a data guy. I'm a tech guy. Actually, my field of expertise is actually information technology and tech, and data is kind of like a big driver of what I do. And so one of the things in terms of what you see from the quarterbacks of today versus even the generation prior is the college game. The NFL, or the college game, which is obviously the feeder primarily for the NFL. We just need to be honest and to be very clear, U.S. college football is the primary feeder for the NFL. Call it duck a duck. Is in today's college game, the passing game is the predominant piece that you're seeing in today's college game. The run game is a secondary element of the game in today's college game, as opposed to the passing game. Sure. Whereas when you're talking, say, let's go back almost 2 full generations to like the John Elways and the Brett Favres and those kind of, in that mold.
Or the run game.
Where the run game was the number 1 or the 1A, and the passing game was the 1B. Today's college game is the exact opposite. Where
look at the Heisman Trophy, what it was modeled after.
Right.
It started changing with the run and shoot.
Right. And so what you're seeing now is these college quarterbacks are coming into the NFL with over double the amount of passing yards that the John Elways of the world used to have. And John Elway was widely respected as having an absolute cannon of an arm coming in to the NFL. And that's not even debatable. The dude's got just a rifle attached to his shoulder. And, as shown by the fact that he was drafted for both baseball and football in terms of his competency level. And so in today's NFL, you're typically dealing with guys that have just simply got more passing yards under their belt and therefore are more competent at passing the football. And so sitting in yesteryear's NFL was a requirement. I still think there's a benefit in sitting in today's NFL, but not for the entirety of the season. I think that it's more of a understanding of the skill set of the defense as opposed to understanding how to throw a football.
Yeah, reading defenses is huge.
Reading defenses at the NFL level, my gosh, is a different can of worms. And
you can look at CJ Stroud. CJ
Yeah.
Stroud went off nuclear last year. This year, he kind of took a step back. Their team's doing well, but himself, he's kind of taking a step back.
I think
he lost his 2 top wide receivers, so that's going to hurt you.
Should take Dell, but yeah.
And I've listened to Johnny Manziel I started like a podcast, so probably like a month ago. And the premise of it is like he brings in dudes that didn't necessarily pan out in the pros, but were like, college studs. And there's always a point where he talks about like, when did you realize it was, different? And I can't remember, I think it was Patrick Peterson, but he's talking about how his own experience, he's like, I didn't know what cover 2 was in college because I didn't need to. Like, I knew that I either had Mike Evans open here. If not, I just dump it there. So it's like, I think that's part of it too. Is college offenses are so dumbed down, and like it's almost they take the analysis part out of it for the quarterback, and they're like, we call this, you throw it here. Whereas in the NFL, it's like, I want to call this, but if we get this look, we might need to switch to this, and I need you to look at this.
This is exactly the problem, though, is you're dealing with a 90-man roster or larger at the college level. And what you get with that is the schools that are more likely to get the most guys drafted at the NFL end up getting the elite level athletes. And then therefore you end up with a bunch of lesser thans at the college level, and then the juggernauts that exist at the NFL, at the college level rather. And so a lot of the college guys can simply just operate under the premise of, I can out athlete you. Like I am faster than you are. I am bigger than you are. I am stronger than you are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, guess what, my man? The NFL doesn't give a crap what college you went to. They go to Europe to find a stronger, bigger, faster, stronger guy than you. They'll go to the rugby leagues to find guys that are bigger, better, faster, and stronger than you are, just because they can. And they'll go to some remote village in Africa where a dude lifts a cow over his shoulder just for fun to get a guy that can be a lineman because he can move a 500-pound animal. And they're like, well, that's analogous to a defensive lineman.
I'm still waiting for that to work, by the way. It seems like the NFL for years has flirted with all these other countries. I remember Japan, they were bringing Japanese guys in, and then they had the African programs, which every team, like I think the Chargers still currently have a player from Africa on his team. And I'm like, I'm still waiting for this to transition into the next level where these guys fully make it. But I get what you're saying, because you had the Chiefs bring in one of the best rugby guys, and then that really.
I don't even know where he is now. He might not even be on the Jaguars anymore.
He's going back to rugby.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's transferable skill sets and other elements like that make a big difference. Either way, my general predictions for this game with the Chargers is. I'm looking at I just want to look at the injury list here, and I think that's going to be the defining element of this game. My Denver Broncos have John Franklin Myers, who's going to be a full participant and will play, DJ Jones, who will play. We have Riley Moss and Jaleel McLaughlin, who is our number one running back, which is
they
not
look out, much. Right?
They are not playing both. Okay. And Pat Surtain is a full.
You got estimate. Run that boy.
You're right. And then we also have the UDFA Watson, who I believe will be elevated, if I'm not mistaken, from the practice squad, who is a Jaleel McLaughlin clone in some regards in terms of size, speed, etc. And sadly for DZ, he was hurt for most of the season and has not seen the field very often. So there's not a whole ton of film on him. So there's not going to be a ton of game planning that you can do to kind of stop a guy like that. But he is very Jaleel-esque in terms of his skill set. He is quick. He's got great hands. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And he's got vision. There's a reason why he was the Denver Broncos' #1 outlay when it comes to the bonus payment for UDFAs. He was the #1, and he is a pretty unique running back, and I think that he will show out. Sadly, Batty is still on IR and cannot be pulled up from IR this season. Otherwise, he would be a serious threat, I believe, because I think he's actually good to go. But sadly, he is still on IR. But then when you look at the Chargers, you have a little bit of a longer list with more key guys who are out. You have Cam Hart, Will Dissly, and you have questionable of Hayden Hurst. Now, even if he does play, if he's questionable, that means he's still banged up, which is still a problem.
No, not really on Hurst. It's going to be getting back into game shape for him. But he's been a non-fact. He has been in the Chargers fandom world the worst signing of Ortiz for bringing in like a free agent.
Right.
So he's been a non-factor most of the season anyway.
You also have Zion Johnson, who's questionable.
Yes.
You also
So,
have your safety in Elijah Molden, who's doubtful,
yep. I
and
don't
you
think he's
have
playing.
Oja. I'm not going to pronounce his Otito O.
Oh, no, that's Tito Obonia.
Yeah,
He's probably our worst D tackle. Tierra Tart and Buna Ford are a tier above him, in my opinion.
and Denzel Perriman is also questionable. So I look at
He will play.
questionable.
He said he's playing.
But I look at questionable guys, and that means that they're banged up at the very
Yes.
least.
Yes.
Which I think is a fair assessment to look at opposing teams. And of course, when I look at my Denver Broncos, there are no questionables. It's either I'm good or I'm not. And so
Well, this is where I'm going back about our injury. The way the Chargers report injuries, I swear to you guys, they are like they take it an extra couple percentages to the top because they are like so in tune with these guys' injuries. They are reporting everything and everything. Like I wish they could be like the Niners and not report anything and just be like, "Oh yeah, by the way,
in
he's been
fairness,
hurt for
DZ,
6 weeks."
but in fairness, Riley Moss practiced basically for the entire practice today. I have that on good authority from some sources that I have.
And I'm going to say something too. Go ahead. Keep going.
He probably could play against the Chargers.
Yeah.
But I think that they have been quite enamored with what they've seen from Drain at cornerback in last game against the Colts, where they feel that they have got another guy that's now solidified himself in the mix, that they don't need to rush Moss back until he is like actually healthy. And so this is just a testament to what I was kind of hinting at in my previous comments to you, which is the Broncos, I think, are just slightly further along in our depth building process because Peyton has been here an extra year.
Sure.
And so you're now going through what my Denver Broncos did last season, which is we look great in stretches, but then we ultimately didn't do well.
Well,
And then
yeah. A week 5 bye didn't do us any favors. Let's just say that.
Sure. But then I think you can then round things out by drafting to meet the proper needs for your team in this upcoming year, bringing in proper free agents, as well as getting UDFAs that kind of round out your roster really well.
100% agree. 100% agree.
And I think that's where you're really at this year, which is basically the Denver Broncos of 2023, as opposed to my Denver Broncos this year of 2024, where we just have that extra year of a veteran savvy head coach who's in the building, who is going to tell the front office, you do the thing, I'm going to call you out. You don't do the thing, I'm not going to call you out. You choose what you want to do.
Agree. I 100% agree with you with the development.
Yeah.
The thing about the Chargers, so sometimes when these guys don't practice or are limited or banged up, what I'm finding out what they're doing, and I'm sure they do this in other teams, is they go in their facility and they work out. They instead of being on the field practicing, they are lifting weights, swimming, and doing things like that, which is not talked about a lot, but have found out from beat reporters. So they're in there with Ben Herbert lifting. Like I think so if they're dealing with an ankle, they're in there lifting. Like they won't have them running on the field.
Right.
So Denzel Perryman coming back, that'll be huge because our run game has suffered. He's our run thumper linebacker paired with Deion Henley, who is a stud. He's a star in the rising on the defensive side, and Tarheeb Hill, still our rookie cornerback. But if the Broncos want success throwing, they're going to throw towards Christian Fulton's side because that guy's on a downward trajectory in cornerback play. And they brought him over and they're like, hey, man, ball out, put some film out, and we'll get you paid to go somewhere else next year, which I fully expect him gone next year because they're probably going to ride out with our two rooks that we have. Cam Hart, unfortunately, he's probably not going to play. Elijah Molden, another Titan that they were like, come on over. I think we traded for him. And they're doing what they did with a lot of these guys was like, hey, man, we'll get you paid. You come over here, ball out for Minter, and we'll get you paid somewhere else. And because the GM they brought in, Joe Ortiz, he is under the Baltimore tutelage where they let people walk for comp picks. This is a comp pick team now. I think we only had 3 comp picks in 10 years with Tom Telesco. And already this year, we're going to have, I think, 7, something like that.
Damn.
Yeah. And who
Wow.
knows? It could go up. But I'll do a quick score projection because I have no clue how this offense is going to run. Disley out, which was been Herbert's kind of security blanket. He's been out with a shoulder injury. He landed really hard. Big dude, never used like that in Seattle, but they decided to use him like a pass catching, like a Travis Kelce, which he's not. But he did really well. I think it's a low scoring. I think it stays under 20s. I think what the defense gave up last week, I don't think they're going to do that again. So I think it's going to be like a 19-14 kind of game or something like that. And I think it's going to be for the Broncos. I think they're going to get their 10th win.
Yeah.
The Chargers will be on life support, but this is where then they go play New England and the Raiders, and they're going to be getting guys back because this is what I'm going for. It's so important that they get into the dance and say they bring this core with them into the dance and maybe get a win in. You never know if they do or not, because it's going to carry over to the next phase of the Harbaugh, Minter stuff. And so I could see them, but I'm also kind of hoping that, say they do win, they win in New England, and then they rest their starters and play 40 chess and have the Raiders win our last game, and then screw the Raiders out of that top pick. But anyways, that's
so I kind of see a similar trajectory, although I do think that the Broncos are able to get into the 20s in this game. I think that Bo Nix has shown the ability to go both deep ball and kind of systematically down the field.
You might be right. I'm thinking because Alohi and Molden will be out, so our run safeties may and shit.
So
might be in the 20s.
I kind of see this in like the 21 to 20, like upper end 27, as
that
the Broncos
could be
score.
Because our heavy safeties are going to be in this game. None of our light safeties will be in this game.
So we have Franklin, who has started to actually figure out how to catch a football, which is a great thing. He's also quick. And so he would be a guy that would give a heavier safety a bit of fits because he's got the speed. Mims is also a guy that's starting to get more involved in the passing game. He is quick. He is fast, right? So again, having certain dudes in the game that are schemed against your guys that are active and stuff, I think will again, this comes up to coaching, right? Which is, Sean Payton is no slouch. I do think the question is, how badly do the Broncos come out and play in the early stage of the game? I think ultimately what you're probably going to see is the Denver Broncos start off slightly slower in the first quarter, but have a better second quarter. And then the second half of the game, really turn on the Jets and do some good stuff.
One thing's guaranteed: the Chargers are either scoring all in the first half or the second half. There's no both. So you pick your poison.
So I see this as something in the vicinity of like a 21-24 to 19 game for the Broncos. I do think it's close. I do think this is like a 3 to 5 point game or 3 to 7 point game, kind of in that general range. And I reserve the right to have a higher scoring game if the Denver Broncos defense is able to like really do some damage to Herbert.
There's some blood in the water. So there's blood in the water. If the Chargers get into 3rd and long, I mean, you just send disguised blitzes up the middle, and what you do is it's just Herbert's got. Supposedly he's off this injury report, but he's not. He's not 100%. He's going to have a brace on his ankle.
No, there's 2 dudes on the Denver Broncos defense that are legit, like as in like dangerous. Jonathan Cooper, who is a dual threat, pass coverage and run blocker on the edge. And you also have Nick Bonito. And then we have all of our interior defensive linemen that are full participants for this upcoming game. Now, they have some injuries, so I do think that there's some disguising there in terms of the injury bug. But I do think that they're going to do very well. And I do believe that you're going to see maybe some decline just because we've had a short week plus some injuries. But overall, the Broncos D-line has been excellent this season in terms of pressures and run blocking.
They've been really good.
Excellent. So I think Bonito and Cooper are the guys to watch for in this game. And I expect Bonito to continue some variation of his statistical insanity, if you will, from this season. I think he'll have some kind of a strip sack or strip fumble or pass deflection at the line of some sort that will be a game changer, because he has shown that he's having that jump that you want to see from an outside linebacker in year 3. And he's also knowing that the Denver Broncos value defensive players and linemen, and he wants to show that he is an invaluable piece that needs to be retained, and that he and Jonathan Cooper can be the guys going forward. They have shown that this season, at least to start with. And that's why, just to kind of jump ahead, and I do have to go, guys, I'm sorry. I do think that the Broncos will draft in the early stage of this upcoming draft of 2025, another interior defensive lineman, because I think they actually signed Nick Bonito to an extension this offseason. He cannot be signed in season because he's in his 3rd year of a 4-year deal. A guy that's in his 3rd year of his contract can only be extended at the end of his 3rd season. So I do see the Denver Broncos extending Nick Bonito, because that sends a message to guys on the Broncos roster under Sean Payton's tutelage, which is, you show out and we will look after you. And that kind of lights a bit of fire under guys to kind of start playing better. Whereas under John Elway, he basically let guys walk because he didn't care about them. And we end up seeing a lack of effort from linemen in particular, because they were never paid.
One quick thing going into our game real quick is 3 vets did come out in interviews. They're embarrassed and pissed about how they played the last game, because that was a super close game at half against the Bucs, and then the Bucs just took off.
Real Mac.
So Mac did say stuff, both Derwin. So that gives me something like they know what they're playing for. So do the Broncos, of what this means, especially in the pecking order. So that kind of like, okay, we'll see what happens. But the Broncos defense, I can see stymieing that Chargers offense, because the Chargers offense has been just unimaginative. Like, there's no,
The one thing to keep in mind in the last 2 games, the Denver Broncos tight ends have actually come out and actually shown that they can block on the edges better than they did when we played you guys in the first go round. So I do think that you're going to see better blocking from the edges, which will certainly negatively impact a guy like Mac and anyone else really coming off the edge. So then the question is whether or not the interior can get home. The interior of the Broncos offensive line against Quinn Miners is probably not going to win that. Quinn Miners is the equivalent of Zion, except he doesn't make those same mistakes. He will pancake guys just for fun. And the only chance you really have getting home is against the center and the left guard, which is Powers, and Wattenberg, who is the center. And if they're pass blocking, they are currently ranked in the upper tier of the NFL. If they're attempting to run block, both Powers and Wattenberg are in the lower 5 or 10 of the NFL. So it really just depends on how the Broncos are trying to play. I suspect Peyton's going to do the same thing he's always done, which is revert to the pass game. And if that's the case, I think the Broncos have a pretty good chance at winning.
Yeah.
But guys, I'm sorry, I do have to go put my hooligan children to bed. I do apologize for having to leave a bit earlier.
All right, before you go, just give the Raiders score before you walk out.
Raiders playing who?
They're playing the Jags.
Jags.
Toilet Bowl.
I see the Jags winning that game 24-14.
Boom.
Brian Thomas Jr.
There we
What does he
go.
get? 168 yards,
Okay.
2 tutties.
Guys, I gotta go.
Hey, Merry
If you have
Christmas,
any
Richard.
you
Merry
too.
Christmas.
If there's any
Merry
questions at
Christmas.
all, reach out to me on X. I'm happy to respond back. If you disagree with anything I
Happy
said,
Kwanzaa.
yell at me in the comment section. That's awesome. And we'll go from there, guys. Have a good one.
Hey, you too.
Peace.
Peace.
You want to go, Alex? You want me to go for the Charger game?
Oh yeah, dude, I'll go, and then we'll get to the Raiders one because I'd like to not make this a 3-hour show.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a close game. It's again AFC West game. They're always close. Like I think it's going to be more of a battle of the defenses than any one's particular team's offense showing up. With that being said, I think Denver wins more. I mean, I would really love to say that I think the Chargers win, but I don't think that the Chargers sweep Denver. And so I think I got 2016 Chargers, but I do think it's going to be a close defensive game. Like,
you got them winning 2016. Okay.
Broncos winning. No, I got.
Broncos.
Sorry. 20. I meant to say 20 Broncos, 16 Chargers, but yeah, I got Broncos winning, but a close one.
All right, I'm going to keep this quick. Since Richie's off the show right now, I want to make it quick too.
Yeah,
it's already been like 2.5 hours. So again, AFC West games are always tight. This is like the huge game of the week, and I can see both teams putting all their heart and soul into this game. I've seen, it looks like the Chargers are kind of stepping back. I mentioned this earlier. When they play against, better offensive teams, which I'm not saying that the Broncos is that, but the Chargers defense does seem to let up. And at this point, the Chargers and Denver are tied now for the least amount of points in the division. And I see that Denver's getting stronger and stronger every week. Again, when DC's boy Ford, when he's on, that defense is on. Ford, your defensive tackle.
I hope they bring him back next year. He's good.
When he is on, again, you got great defensive ends. When Ford can push that pocket, it's a game changer for the Chargers.
5'10", right?
I don't know how big he is, but
Ford's only 5'10".
I've just been impressed with his play at defensive tackle. And then, you got KJ out, so that kind of limits your outside running. You're going to be kind of more inside running. So, with that all being said, I got it as a wider margin for this game. I got it at 24.
Like I said, it's sweeping opponents in the AFC West is super rare unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, unless it was the Raiders for, last 4 years up until this year playing Denver.
So now I'm like, oh, yeah. I don't know, man.
It's going to be a good game.
Winning.
I think it's a good game, but I got it 24-17. I got it more than one touchdown score.
The only way I see there's a chance for my team is if one of the guys that hasn't been a factor all season, whether that be DJ Chark or Laviska Shenault, one of them, they put him in this offense and they go, here you go, dude. And Justin has some resemblance of an X. And they just go boom. But
Denver is just so good at pressuring. They get so many sacks per game. That's like that would be a Christmas game, right?
That's one of the reasons Herbert's getting sacked so much is his receivers are creating no separation, other than Ladd. But it's Anyways, whatever. I mean,
I think
I'm worried about the Cincinnati chomping in the hunt coming up, and how embarrassing would that be if they got ahead of the Chargers and got into the playoffs? I would just.
I'd like to see all three of your teams make the playoffs, and you guys eliminate each other, so you guys get shittier draft picks next year.
That's true.
Time will tell.
I just want one of the tight ends, either Michigan or Penn State. That's all I care about.
Well,
I love my tight ends.
But yeah, let's
move on to the toilet bowl game and let's get it over with. So this is the game. This is the game. It's like, it's not what team wants to win it more. What team wants to lose it for a draft pick is really what it's going to come down to. Both teams stink on offense. The Raiders got a better defense than the Jaguars.
Yeah.
The injuries are just beyond belief. It's like, there's like, who's left? You know, we're signing guys from practice squad, moving them up to the active roster. It's like, there's really nobody that's really left on this team. If the only thing that's Aiden O'Connell's coming back. So, yes, I do feel he's a better quarterback than Desmond Ridder. The Raiders don't seem like they can get over 20 points a game. So,
No.
I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to. I have the Raiders, and I haven't said this in probably 8 weeks. I have the Raiders actually winning this game.
Yes, because I got a feeling.
And not that I want it to happen, but I do see them winning because I just think they're a better, even with all the injuries, I think they're still a better team.
1-point favorite.
Sees everything. They're going, hey, man, Raiders are going to draft a new QB. He's like, okay, so I'm just chopping.
I'm going to spoil that.
So he's like,
yeah, I don't want that to happen. I want to keep those draft picks.
I'll give an FU, and I'm going to win a game with Brock Bowers here and Myers or Jacoby. Yeah,
Myers.
Yeah, and maybe Trey Tucker, sprinkle him in there.
But yeah, I just think that's the that just would be the cherry on top, right? Is the game?
I'll send him a Christmas card if he does that.
They win, but
I do think they win.
I mean, like you said, Jack, it's kind of the trash bowl. But I mean, me and Coach kind of talked about this when we did the fantasy show because he talked about loving Brian Thomas, and I'm like, but the Raiders' defense has actually been pretty good. It's just the offense hasn't been helping them out, and
offense has been so trash.
I think it's even a step further in the same type of vibe and narrative as we had for the Falcons Raiders game, and this is only just a step further in that the Jaguars are just a little bit worse off than Atlanta, but that's not saying much. And so I think you see kind of a similar game like that, but I do think the Raiders win. And I'll give a wacky 18-16 score.
Yeah, well, I got it. I'm pretty close to where you're at. There, Alex, you said 18-16. I have the Raiders 19-16. But I don't want that score to happen.
Yeah.
Well, it's the first time in literally 8 weeks I've chosen win.
I mean, you want them to lose.
I do at this point.
I mean, if the Chiefs were the same boat, I'd be like, F it. Like, we need to be as high as we can to ensure.
Don't get off the goalpost.
The only thing they have going for them, the Raiders at least, is at least one of the potential QBs has kind of already said, I'm not playing for one of the teams picking up there, so it'll work out. But yeah, I do think this is a game that the Raiders win and kind of use as like a rallying point, for next year and to kind of move into the next phase of things. But
Jack, I think the Raiders win out.
There we go.
Yeah, well, I hope that doesn't happen.
And they'll come away with.
So I was kind of surprised when you said that last game you want your Chargers to lose to the Raiders. I was like, well, you're still in the playoff hunt, so you should want every win you can get.
I'm thinking by week 18.
He wants it secured.
I was like, we would have to beat the Broncos tomorrow night, and then New England. Obviously, I hate looking ahead.
You should win that one.
Raiders. I mean, yeah, New England's. Yeah,
you should get at least 2 of the 3.
Unfortunately, that game is going to be a 1:00 game on the East Coast. They didn't do the Chargers any favors with that. And then I was like, okay, then let the Raiders kind of win. But
well, there's going to be a mysterious flu going around in Las Vegas, so we might see some other guys going out. Who knows?
Bird flu made its way.
Time will tell.
They all get COVID.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see.
What's your score? Let's wrap it.
Yeah. Final score from DZ.
Look, I'm predicting I want the Raiders to win, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to find a way not to. But I'm like, AP wants to save face, right? I'm hearing that Tom and him are distancing. There's some distance between them now.
There's a lot of competing interests.
Yeah, so AP doesn't want to go out to be like I'm done, one and done essentially kind of thing. So, but he also knows, hey man, I need to lose this because I need picks. Like if I,
Right.
so it's like, it's weird. I think Jacksonville wins, to be honest with you. Like, but I see it as like a wonky score, like you guys are saying. I see like a 20 to like 17 or 20-16, something like that. Just some dumbass score.
At least we all got the same vibe there.
Yeah,
right?
we got the same vibe.
Wait, where's the
Wanky.
game at? Is it in Vegas? Obviously,
Yeah.
Vegas.
Yeah, I think it's at Vegas, right?
I think it is too. I really didn't look.
I think it's Vegas. Raiders are one.
Dude, this might be
1-point
the
favorite.
first game, not to talk any smack, where the Raiders have home field advantage. Just kidding.
No, I think
Yeah,
they're
probably.
a 1-point favorite. So, and that's
Yeah.
pretty sad when you're playing the Jaguars and you're a 1-point favorite.
Oh wait,
Well, a
I
lot of
think-
factors though, man.
I don't
Max
know what the
out,
spread
like,
is for the Chargers Broncos.
Chargers
game.
are favorites, 2.5.
Jesus. Oh, so
But,
that's just
you
that's
know,
a coin flip.
home. Yeah,
That's even worse than home because usually it's 3.
that's true.
God.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, man.
Well,
I mean, it'd be a good AFC West matchup for that.
Yeah.
Chargers Broncos, nonetheless. We'll see how the trash bowl goes for the Raiders. Toilet bowl. Sorry.
yeah, we got to get that right.
And and we'll see what happens with the
Houston
Chiefs
Chiefs
Texans
game's gonna be good
on
too.
Saturday.
That's gonna be a
Yeah,
good game.
and it's the first stretch too of the 3 games for the Chiefs in 11 days. So it's a little bit of a tough grind here. So we'll see how it happens. But
Yeah, man.
But yeah, guys.
For everyone who's listening, Merry
stayed
Christmas
with
to
us.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Merry Christmas,
Happy
you
Hanukkah,
guys.
Merry
DZ.
Kwanzaa.
Yeah, DZ. Appreciate you having you on, brother.
Yeah,
It's
brother.
always
No
good.
problem.
Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, even though you're not keeping the chat active, it's good to you keeping the show active today.
Yeah, fucking Charger
But
fan.
yeah.
I just real quick before we go, I always thought this was the only show that did the 4 teams, and then
Really?
just like this season, I found out there was another show that does that too, and I was
There
like,
is one.
Those bitches.
Yeah.
It came way after this one, though.
But the guys that do it, no offense to anybody on the show, they have like massive social media followings.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh, I know who it is.
Yeah,
He's
so
He's
I
another
was-
guy from the 916 from my home city.
Yes, but I was like, that's what drew me to this like a couple years ago, and I was like, holy shit, this is the best because you get the perspective of everybody. And Coach Defense did such a good job for the Chargers at the time, and then Robert, I don't know, and then Captain
Robert's
Jack.
dealing with life.
That was funny. That was
Hey,
great.
it became one of my favorite shows, and as being one of the biggest mods in Raider Nation, I still kept circling back to this show because I've always believed, you keep your friends close, you keep your enemies closer. So I
Yeah,
always
yeah,
want to
man.
know what's going on,
100%.
who's hot, who's not,
I don't
'cause
listen to any of the Charter shows anymore because they're either like super analytical or super hypothetical or then super fantasy, and I'm like, I can't, dude. I
Yeah.
can't do this shit with
We
you
need the
guys.
nitty
Like,
gritty facts, the
I
realism.
just, let me know how you feel, man. Like, all right, but anyways,
No,
Yeah.
man, but yeah, like I said, appreciate having you on. Everyone out there,
Yep.
happy holidays.
Daisy.
We'll
yeah,
go
man.
AFC
Salute,
West
guys.
this week. Let's see if I don't mess up the outro. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so